like to call the board meeting to order. It is 6:40. We're running just slightly behind schedule. This meeting, I'd like to announce this meeting is being recorded, and we'll also be, at the end of this meeting, we'll be going into executive session to discuss the purchase of real property and litigation strategy, and we will not be returning to open session afterwards. The first thing up on the agenda is public comment. Yeah. Do we have people? Thank you, Sarah. First up is Andre Swartz. Audrey.
Hello, my name is Audrey Swartz. I'm a junior at AMSA this year, and I participate in sports all 3 seasons, and I'm here to talk about the time change that was proposed. So I run cross country in the fall, swim in the winter, and run track in the spring. And because of this, I miss a lot of school due to early dismissals for athletic activities. I'd say that I miss, on average, in the fall and spring, like once or twice a week, but then in the winter, because of swim, it's closer to like 3 or 4 times a week, which is about usually a class period each time, sometimes a little less, sometimes a little more. So as a student who's already juggling a lot of things, this can be very stressful, having to go and make up this work and talking to all your teachers about what you're doing and what you missed. And so having the day move forward would help out a lot when it comes to missing less class time and having more time at the end of the day to get work done. It will also help when it comes to late practices. Our practices tend to run around 5:15-ish for my spring and fall sports, and swim practices end a little earlier. But if we could move the school day forward, it would definitely open up more time in the afternoon if practices were moved forward also, which I think would just help studying more. A lot more time and energy could be focused towards school after school, and just help you become better students overall. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
I'd like to call Jack Johnson.
Hello everybody, I am a junior here at AMSA. For everybody that doesn't know, I am also an advocate for the early school change. And to start off, to go along Audrey's point of that people are missing a lot of class, this Wednesday actually 167 students were actually dismissed for athletics, which is a large amount obviously. And to go more about this, what I would like to say is that when students miss these class periods, obviously they're missing a lot of work, but it goes along with tests and quizzes, which maybe it may have happened to me, it may have not. You miss that, the teacher puts in the 0, and then your grade is affected, and then you're not able to play the academics, and it's extremely hard on one to make that up due to your practice times or games. So from an athlete's perspective, the 3:15 time that we have already is hard on a student and stressful to make the work up. But what I'd also like to add with the earlier starting time is that by around 7:55, which the new starting time would be, I'd say about 95% of the students are already at school. So from my perspective and a lot of the other students' perspectives, that doesn't seem to be a problem. But yeah, so that's all I have.
All right. Thank you. Tom Azeredo.
Hi. I'm wanting just to add my thoughts on the schedule change, post-schedule change, from a teacher's perspective. I will say that when I first heard of this proposal, I'm not a morning person, So I was ready to be skeptical, but the arguments that were made convinced me. What convinced me was how they connected to my own experience in class. We do have, as teachers, a constant impact on classes by having a large percentage of our students missing when their athletics interferes with the last period in particular. And it can be so bad that the class can't even function perhaps that week. We may have a class that meets every other day, and half the class is missing on the 2 days they would be showing up. And this is, week by week, accumulating a lot of impact on how the students are developing through the year, how they're coming to the curriculum, how much stress they feel as they try to catch up. I had one class this year where no one showed up. And that was maybe an accumulation of moon cycles meeting this and that. But it's far too common a problem. So I'm very much for this schedule change. I think it will help our students in a significant way. It will improve the learning environment for many students who are also athletes who feel stressed. It also affects the students who are currently in class and find how we can actually teach, change, modify, or limit it by the absence of students. In addition, office hours is our chance to teach one-on-one, to get to help the student individually in a sustained way. And the way we currently have it, many students like to, I want to show up, I know I need to, you've asked me many times to do so, but given the time it happens, it just impacts too much. That is different going on in life, different things that their family asks them to do. So if we had the schedule change, I strongly believe that many students would be able to make use of office hours in the way they cannot right now. I think for the academic good of AMSA and for the well-being of these young people, this is a win-win situation if we do act on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Bethany Bertinelli?
Barlene.
Hello.
I've been a teacher here for 6 years. I've taught every grade from 8th through 12th in history. And from a teacher's perspective, I'm a huge proponent for this schedule change because of mostly the missed class time. Every morning I come in, I do homeroom, and my room's empty from 7:40 to 8:05. Kids take their time coming in. They'll work on their homework, maybe 2 or 3 kids, but they all come swarming in for the attendance bell. And I look, and it's not just sports that are being dismissed, it's also math teams, robotics teams, a bunch of different academic as well as extracurricular clubs getting dismissed early. So when I notice that the dismissals are impacting my classroom, academically, it's very limiting because not only can I not stay on task with my curriculum, I walk into my class and I notice sometimes half my class is missing. And we might have been working for 2 weeks preparing for a mock trial. And my attorneys are missing, my witnesses are missing, sometimes even my defendant is missing. And especially when you teach in the lower school and 8th grade history is every other day, I've gone 2 weeks without seeing students this past spring. Like I had a kid come to me the other day and say, I'm sorry I missed the mock trial, I was absent, I didn't see you for the last 2 weeks. And that can be very limiting for content, and then it holds back the kids that aren't participating in these competitions or these sports or these meets or these tournaments because they're in the classroom ready to learn, and then I can't follow through with the lesson. So from that perspective, I do think that having this change, being dismissed earlier, would allow all the students to stay connected, to all feel like they're a part of the community, and we'd be able to get so much more done in the classroom. Instead of breezing through Reaganomics, I can get all the way through 9/11 when I'm teaching US 2. I don't have to sit and wait for kids or assign readings or find alternate assignments that aren't as enriching because I don't have the entire class there. The last thing I wanted to talk about is the dismissal time. So we're going to be getting dismissed, hypothetically, if this were to pass at 2:45. So that is earlier for us. However, it's the latest that all Marlboro schools would be getting dismissed. So this might not entirely solve the problem, but it would make it so much better. Because if we're competing against other Marlboro schools, Marlboro High gets dismissed at 5 minutes to 2. Assabet gets dismissed at 2:25. We're still getting dismissed 20 minutes later than all the other schools in our town. So I feel like even though this isn't going to solve every problem, we'll still have it. It's going to be a huge help for these kids. It's going to make their lives so much better. They'll have so much more time after school to do homework, to have jobs if they want to do that, to participate in clubs that they might not normally have the time or the opportunity to, and just to be better, well-rounded, less stressed out kids. And it's all about their health and their well-being that we're here having this meeting. So, thank you.
Thank you. Pete Jones?
Thank you, members of the Board of Trustees, for allowing me a moment to speak. My name is Pete Jones. I am the athletic director here at AMSA, and I am in favor of the proposed change to our schedule. As currently constituted, as many of you are aware, a great majority of our athletes are dismissed on a near daily basis for extracurricular activities after school. I believe that the proposed change to a 2:45 dismissal would almost 100% eliminate our need for early dismissals for home games and greatly diminish our need for dismissals for away games. I do believe that there would no longer be a need to dismiss for home games. There still would be some times where we would need to dismiss for away games, but the impact on the students, as Jack and Audrey spoke, and Tom and Bethany as well, our student athletes at times are missing class at an alarming clip. I believe that some of our best and brightest students are student athletes, and they're able to maintain and not fall behind, but some of our students do struggle with that missed class time. They need that instructional time. They need to be in the class. Yeah, they can make up their work and they can contact the teacher, but they're missing that valuable classroom time, those classroom discussions, the instruction, sitting there in the classroom. Our students are missing a little bit of that if they're competing with athletics. And there are students who struggle who need that class time. Teachers, just to pile on what Tom said, there is a teacher impact here as well. I can't imagine what it's like as a teacher to have this wonderful lesson plan for last period, only to get an email from the AD that morning, and I'm going to be missing 13 kids from my class last period. That's a frustrating thing for any teacher, I believe. Just a couple numbers, a couple different ways to look at this from the perspective of one athlete, and I'll use Jack Johnson as an example. He's a boys varsity soccer player for us. You just heard from him. This fall, on 9 occasions, he missed a half a class for a home game. On 7 occasions, he missed an entire class for an away game, and twice he missed more than one period of class for an away game. This adds up to a total of 14 classes missed in September and October alone. I believe the proposed change would diminish this number to 2 to 4 times for Jack and kids like Jack. Depending on what I can do with other schools working out our start times for games, I mean, I think we can all agree 3 to 4 missed classes over 2 months is a lot better than 14. Another way to look at this is just from the perspective of one day, a random day, not our busiest, not our quietest day, was just this month. 194 students were dismissed prior to or during the last period. That's almost 20% of our school, as you guys know. With the proposed change that day, I'm pretty sure I could have had that dismissal down to 13 students. 13 students would have had to be dismissed that day as opposed to 194. So thank you for your time and listening to me talk tonight. Please consider this change to our school's operation. I believe it would benefit all of our students, all of our staff. And we have fantastic students who can get away with missing some class time, but we have some students who need to be there in the classes for their entirety. So if you would, please consider this change to our school. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Christina? Ms. J?
Christina. I was one of the original teachers who brought the proposal to administration and then did the initial PowerPoint presentation to the teachers and then to the governance board. And so I've gotten to meet lots of people. I'm just speaking from the point of view of this is an important decision, and I understand that it's weighty on many levels. One of the key things that we got out of the meeting that we had was the fact that while this is a major change and it can be sort of scary, in many levels it's also really important. We're not losing academic time. In fact, we're gaining it for the students who are already losing it. We're not asking for athletics to be lost. In fact, we don't want athletics to leave. We'll lose our students. Instead, what we're asking is that our students who are athletes get to be students first. and that they have the time in the classroom to do what they want to do versus having to make that tough choice between athletics and academics. And that's my whole summary, but that's the whole thing. We're actually looking, even though we get out earlier, to give more time on learning to more students because of the number of students who leave on a daily basis for sports. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you. Jeremy Morris.
It's not going to get high. So from the perspective of a teacher, not so much in the afternoon, but throughout the day as the proposal has it, the 4-minute passing period, I have been here long enough to have seen 4 minutes work. We used to have an activity period every Wednesday, and the students would get from class to class and still be able to make it 2 classes on time in the 4-minute passing time. We have teachers who have been here during times in which it was 3 minutes. Now, 3 minutes that would be some running for them, and that's just not what we want. But I'm in room 507, which is a lovely corner that shows me right outside to where I could see the lower school and the white building. And on many occasions, in between dismissals, there's a lot of times in which the kids are not actively pursuing their direction to class. So I don't think that the 4-minute passing time is going to be a horrible thing. In fact, I think it's actually going to be a positive change, because in between classes, it means that students will be motivated to move and hopefully get into less trouble. I'm also someone who is a coach, coaching volleyball with a couple of other teachers. We have some really great coaches who are teachers, and every one of those times when the kids are being dismissed, a lot of us coaches are being dismissed as well, which means we're putting kind of a burden on AMSA, adding to our subs list. This would drastically reduce the amount of subs as well for those times in which we're out. One of the other activities that I helped out with this year has been with curling. We have to rent out the ice time as well as the equipment and the other instructor who comes. However, we're paying into almost 45 minutes that we can't use because all the other schools start before us. So this time allowance would actually allow the curling team to get to where we need to on time and be able to participate with the rest of the schools on time. That's it for me. Sorry.
Thank you.
Do it for the curling team.
Other public comment? Seeing none, public comment is closed. All right, so we are, like all the board members, to take a look at the agenda. I have one minor adjustment to the logistics of the agenda schedule. We're going to move the vote for the length of school day after the parent rep and teacher rep comments, and so that the parent and teacher rep can share their feedback with the board before we vote. So that's the one change in the agenda. So I'd also like to request a board member to be the timekeeper for tonight. Any volunteers?
Everybody's looking at me.
All right.
Volunteer to be the timekeeper.
Thank you,
The
Robert.
timekeeper. And finally, this board meeting, we have adjusted the agenda so that all the votes are at the top of the agenda before we're going into other board business. So that we'll look forward to feedback at the end of the meeting as to whether this was effective or not, and how to continue to improve our meeting process. So with that being said, questions on the agenda or other adjustments needed? So first item is to review and approve the meeting minutes from April 25.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Second?
So we have Liz and Roll to approve the minutes. Any other discussion? No discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Chris is abstained. Motion passes. Thank you. Next item up, I'd like to announce that Rick Kamal has resigned from the Board of Trustees and as the chair. So he is, thank Rick for his many years of service to the board, but he is unable to make the commitment required to be a trustee. So at this point, he has resigned from the board effective today. So which leads us to reasons for we need trustee elections. So we have the follow. So I'd like to ask Raul to briefly chair the meeting. So the first order of business is to elect a new chair of the board. And we've discussed this at governance, but so would you do the honors?
Sure. So I guess is there a slate that we're putting forward, or we're just proposing anybody?
We would do it individually, but the summary of the slate would be myself as chair, Raul as vice chair, and continuing as secretary through July 1st. At July 1st, Jill would be secretary, and Kristen would be continuing as treasurer unchanged.
So what am I doing?
Proposing
that slate?
I'd like you to propose the election for chair, because it feels awkward to be electing myself.
I'd like to propose Roger Jarrett for the position of chair of the Board of Trustees. Any motions?
So moved?
Second.
That was Chris?
Yeah.
It's Chris.
Those
in favor? Aye.
I will abstain.
Anybody against?
By acclamation.
The motion passes.
Thank you.
Chairing the meeting.
I abstain. Abstain. Well, thank you.
So that means he's not so sure it's a good idea?
And I'm sorry, Roger, I didn't know if we were doing the whole slate or one.
No, just the one.
Okay.
Just because it felt weird to be running the election for myself. So at this point, I'd like to nominate Raul as vice chair.
Second.
A second from Ev.
You're going too fast.
Okay, Roger and Ev
Roger.
for Raul as vice chair of the board. All in favor?
I abstain.
Motion passes unanimously with Raul abstaining. So effective July 1st, I would like to vote. Well, actually, I'm going to back up one bit here. First, I'd like to nominate Jill as a full trustee as of July 1st. And it's also been approved in governance.
Second.
Second by Chris. So all in favor?
Can I vote if I want to?
Yes, you may vote.
So I did not abstain.
No, Roger and Chris.
Roger, Chris, for Jill to be a trustee for a 3-year term starting July 1st. And that motion passed unanimously. Jill, did you abstain or vote for yourself?
No, I voted.
Voted for yourself, great. And following that, I'd like to nominate Jill as secretary of the board effective July 1st.
Second.
And Kristen second. All in favor?
Roger. Chris.
Motion approved. One more piece, this is more of an announcement. We're forming a new, due to the rearrangement of things, with Rick leaving the board, we're going to reform the executive committee of the board. So this is just an announcement. The executive committee of the board will be myself, Raul, Kristen, Jill, and Liz. Liz.
So that's the officers and one member at large?
Yes.
You calling me large?
Touch that. All right. So finally, is Maura Webster here? Hi, Maura. Would you like to introduce yourself to the board? The PTO has nominated Maura Webster as the parent representative effective July 1st.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. As I said, Maura Webster. I am the parent of two Eagles. Emma is in 6th grade and Madeline is in 8th grade. I found that actually the conversation tonight really interesting because they're both athletes in the spring, so it's definitely some agreement there. I'm really excited to be joining as the parent rep. I've been with the exception of college, a lifelong resident of Marlborough and really involved in the community, and I'm excited to take that capacity here at AMSA and looking forward to all the different ways that I hopefully can help the board and the school as we grow and make even deeper roots in Marlborough.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Maura, would you like to come? I'd like to extend the invite for you to come join us at the table.
We already have a folder for you. So.
Printed label.
Yeah.
So I'd like a motion from the board to. I'd like to make a motion for the board to accept the PTO recommendation of Maura Webster to join the board.
Second.
And that'll be effective July 1st for a 1-year term. So if Roger and Liz, all in favor? Aye. Motion carries. So Sarah will be reaching out to you to complete the requisite paperwork. And the final, you would become a voting member effective July 1st, once DEES also does their official approval.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right. And final announcement that the DEES paperwork has come through for our faculty representatives. So
I've already been enjoying my voting privileges, Roger.
so Jess is an official voting member of the board effective this meeting. So that covers chair business. So the next item up is the budget. And I'd like to thank Kristen and Liana and Ellen and everybody that's been involved in getting us to this point. It's been a major effort this year. I'd like to pass the baton to Kristen.
All right. So, welcome to the AMSA budget review. Does everyone have their coffee? Make sure everyone is
Wow,
awake.
this is so exciting.
We have extra reading glasses available.
Oh, yeah. Everybody need it? Yeah, microscopic view of the budget. Okay. So, as Roger indicated, Ellen and Leanna spent significant amount of time building a bottoms-up budget this year. We've had a couple of revisions. We've worked through it and are ready to propose this budget to the school. I'd like to note that anything unusual that comes up during the year, we would want to present to the school that's outside of budget. Otherwise, the school has done a fabulous job staying within their budget. It's fairly conservative as well, so that's usually a good thing when it comes to understanding where your money's going. We'll just walk through kind of the highlights first. So just in summary, the total net income of the school is projected or budgeted to be $181,000 for next school year. This is a decrease from this past year of about $350,000. The primary changes to the budget, just in summary, are an increase in revenue in total of $395,000, and that's offset by increases in costs. Salary and benefits being the primary increase of $400,000. Professional development, an increase of $65,000, primarily due to usage estimates as opposed to an increase in the allotted budget. Real estate costs of $120,000, and that includes CAM and all related expenses to the facilities here. IT costs of approximately $40,000, and a miscellaneous other throughout the budget of $30,000, and additional depreciation and amortization of $87,000 related to purchases of equipment and other building costs that have incurred over this past year, and full year depreciation on some other assets. In summary, so to walk through the detail on page 1, tuition, which is our largest line item on the budget, is an item that is based upon estimates from the towns and the students that are coming. It is projected to be $14,588,000 this year in the coming year for the budget versus a projection for the current school year of $14.2 million, which is a $339,000 increase. This is a conservative estimate this year, and throughout the year we often see increases. This represents 2.3% increase this year. Rental income is fairly flat. Investment income is proposed to be slightly higher. There is a number of grants included, as well as an estimate of $50,000 for general giving included in the budget this year, which is slightly higher than the past year, coming year versus the past year. Other significant notes, club income projected to be slightly down. It's conservative based on current year revenue and students in clubs available, and some of these will change during the year, but overall they'll be fairly consistent with the exception of other income, slightly increased, and again some of that is allocation. So total student program income about $12,000 lower in the budget. Again, that's a conservative estimate because it's usually favorable to budget income lower, and see an upside associated with that. Athletic programs slightly higher due to increased participation this year, and a decrease in transportation income. This is also conservative. We had a full slate of buses this year, and we want to be conservative next year. That may or may not go up. We'll see how that goes. So total income again to wrap almost $16 million this year versus 15.6, for a 2.5% increase versus the current school year of $395,000. Does anyone have any questions on income before we move on? No questions? Excellent. Expenses. So as noted in the summary, salary and benefits expenses are the primary increase that we incur as an institution. It's most of our cost to goes into this section, right? So $9 million of our expenses are in salaries, and taxes and benefits are another $1.8 million. There's actually a handout to walk through in the packet to look at the salary summary so that we can give an overview of how this is occurring to the board. It's called salary summary. The 2020 head count, we split this out into the collective bargaining and the admin salaries as a facilitator so you can understand the ratio of the head count and the dollars. Total heads projected for 2020 are about 86 versus 2019 of 86. So we're really just about on par with the head count numbers for that portion of the team. And the increase in salaries of $5 million is primarily a 3% increase that is contractually obligated due to the collective bargaining agreement. Administrative salaries has a modest increase of 1%. We had a tight budget this year, as we noted with the other increases. The total head count of 45.6, and again this includes part-time heads, which is why it's an odd number, versus 2019 of 46, so just slightly under as well, with a $3 million salary amount. And again, it's a modest increase, as well as job shift changes for various roles within the organization built into that number. And salaries also include stipends for teachers and others who have other roles within the organization, homeroom time, substitutes, which we heard about from some of our speakers earlier today that are needed, so we may have some cushion there, you never know. And fringe benefits associated with some of these others are included in the gross salaries number.
I don't understand the benefits.
I would have to get to that as well. I don't know, Leanna, do you have the answer on the top of your head as to why that benefit line item is here?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
The fringe benefit line in the salary summary?
Last page.
Oh,
That- on the salary summary?
That's the accrued sick,
Oh, the sick time benefit.
the sick bank.
Yeah.
Oh, the sick bank.
The sick bank, yeah.
So, I'm still, this is not included in the benefits figures from the other,
Yeah, so that, let me
So
explain
how
what
is
that
that?
is. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So there's a payout requirement for certain accumulated sick time that teachers can take if they don't use the time. And so it becomes, it's not necessarily a benefit in that sense, but it gets paid out more like a salary in those instances when it occurs.
and it gets paid out when it's withdrawn from the sick time bank?
At the end of
What
the
is that?
school year.
At
No.
the end of the
At the end
year,
of the school year.
at the end of the year, we can, whatever sick time we didn't use, we can either bank it or get paid out, or a combination of both.
Oh, you can cash out some of your sick time, and that's what that is?
That's
okay.
right.
Yeah. At
All right.
$100 a day.
So that's an estimate. We'll change that.
So maybe it should be called PTO
Yep.
or something.
Yep. Noted, thank you. Any questions on the salary summary?
So does the salary summary does not include benefits or social security or?
Yeah, this is just the total
This
gross
is
salary
Gross salary.
review by the different categories, so that everybody can have a clear understanding of how that,
So fringe benefits is actually a sick time buyback?
Yeah.
Yes,
yes.
Yes.
Yes,
it's set aside.
yep. All right.
Is the substitute, is that what that can't be what we spend all year on substitutes? Is that just what gets paid to teachers for covering classes? It's not all the substitute teachers.
That would be the teacher portion of the
Okay.
substitute, so anybody who's not
It's
in
everything, it's all the
salaries.
substitutes.
Oh, okay.
So this is extra payment to teachers for doing sub work in
Or
addition
even
to their
subs.
regular?
Or subs.
Subs.
Or subs.
Leanna, do you have more
At
info on that one?
$100 a day. A sub gets $100 a day.
So this 100 grand, now this $125,000 covers all of our substitutes, internal and external,
Yes.
in the course of a year? Huh.
It's lower than you thought.
That seems low.
What's homeroom then?
DS.
Oh, okay.
What'd you say?
DS, direct to study.
And that homeroom period that's currently in the schedule?
Okay.
Yeah. We didn't want to take it out where it was, not
Not
official
voted
yet.
on yet.
All right. And benefits. There was an increase in benefits and payroll taxes. Payroll taxes will go up as a result of the increase in overall pay, and fringe benefits, medical benefits go up every year, and we have an 8% increase budgeted this year for benefits. So that is not a terrible increase, but we did take an action to look at alternative benefits providers throughout the year, to the extent that we can always keep that cost down. Leanna,
So when do we get the price on medical insurance?
What's that?
When is our medical insurance year?
We have it. The medical insurance is all set, it was an 8% increase.
Oh, okay, so this
For
is not,
next year.
yeah.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
is
for
for
next
next year.
All right, this is not projected, this is known.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are the two big line items. So really no change in staff, just annual salary increases. Professional development, I hinted that this was one of the larger increases this year. That is more or less, if you notice, the budget for this particular school year that we're wrapping up is the same as the budget next year, but so far the take rate has only been about $130,000. So the folks that have that as an eligible item have not used it fully, but we continue to budget that to its fullest in hopes that they will all take that. Okay. Instructional supplies and equipment, not much of a change there, some shifting around based on teacher needs from the submissions that they made. So net with this year's projection on track, slightly higher than the original budget, but again, in general, the entire budget is on plan. Some items have shifted during the year, but budget of for the 18-19 versus the actual are in line.
If I'm interpreting this correctly, it's more than slightly higher.
It's $3,000?
So
Lower.
what's projected?
I know, I
370?
made myself a new cheat sheet. So 367 versus a projection of 370. The budget was only 317. So versus budget, there's been some different shifting here and there of this year, but versus the projection, primarily the budget is based on run rates for this year along with other known factors.
Right, no, I'm just comparing the 18-19 budget to the projected actual, right?
Yes. So that actually, on that line item, is $53,000 higher, but for example, we're saving on professional development of $65,000 this year. That's the shifting throughout the year of the different
I
items.
was just commenting on when you were
That's higher
talking
than
about
budget.
slightly, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, no, what I meant was it's slightly different from the projection this year. Student program expenses. Student program expenses are budgeted to be $20,000 higher on the program line this year versus last year. Student programs continue to be strongly participated in. Club expense is slightly down based on run rates, as is the testing and assessment revenue. Pretty flat for the year. This is also net a $20,000 increase over the budget for this year. So this is a slightly different, a slightly higher expense in the budget this year versus last year's budget. But on net on track for 3% more than this year's history. We have a breakdown for that. We can get some questions answered. I don't have it at my fingertips, but we can get to that later. If anyone has specific questions, let me know. Athletics is one of our most interesting and large budget items. There's also a supplementary schedule included in your packet, if you'd like to pull that out while we go through it. My understanding is over the course of the last several years, there's been a lot of debate and change over the athletic programs. As we've heard from many of our folks here today, many students participate in the athletics of the school. They are charged fees for participation, and total income in the budget this year is projected at $212,000 from those fees versus a forecast of $200,000 this year. So it's fairly run rate with slight increase. The expenses include equipment, uniforms, and refs, $100,000. This is projected to be slightly lower than the forecast. 4 kicks, which is $148,000 of the fee. Salaries for those coaches and whatnot are $196,000, and transportation is $100,000. So the projected expense in the budget this year is $545,000 versus $542,000, and that will result in a $332,000 loss to the school, where the school is subsidizing the cost of athletics for students who participate. This is a known line item that is costly to the school, but all folks on the finance committee agree that this is really important for all the students. I think everyone in the room decided it was important for the students. But as we continue to feel pressure within the budget, this might be an item that we look at in the future to make changes to, one way or another, just to keep that in mind, obviously. But very, very important to the whole student education process, and everybody agrees with that. Hence the school's decision to continue to absorb that cost.
Kristen, can I ask, is the 4 kicks, is that in addition to what we pay for the PE classes, or so that's just like the after-school part?
Yeah, this is just the athletic piece.
And the transportation it's more than just the white buses, it's buses that have to...
I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
All transportation
Thanks.
costs. Yeah. Any other questions on the athletics?
From a percentage basis, look, just eyeballing this, percentage-wise, we are funding about the same percentage as the previous, at least as of the previous year. Yeah, so,
That's true.
so I don't know if we're, and it'd be looking back a couple of years, it looks like, maybe going, I guess I'm leaving another comment, that maybe going forward that we can set a goal percentage to say that we will fund that we expect the revenue portion, we expect like 60% coverage, 65, but looks like it's about 70% that our general budget is paying 30% of the education of the athletics budget, and the fees are paying 70%. I'm just eyeballing it.
Yeah, so.
So we're subsidizing 30 and fees are paying
yeah.
70.
Yeah. Well, we're
what-
subsidizing 60%. So if the total expense is $545 this year, we're paying the $332 divided by the $545, so that's actually 61%. And then this year, we're looking at $342 divided by the $542, which is 63%, so it's slightly less than last year's expense. If we go back to the prior year, 307, 528, it was 58%. So you can see we're taking a bigger chunk to the school versus the student. 274 divided by the 463, that's kind of interesting, that's 59. So it's hovering, right around the 60% generally in the past, slightly more. But again, this is contingent upon, this is how many sports do we offer, how many kids take the sports, and then, how many kids have multiple sports, right? So if it was a unique child for every single slot in every single sport, there would be more income than repetitive kids, right? There's a cap. Isn't there a cap on how much?
There isn't a cap, there's a bit of a tiered system for siblings.
Tiered siblings, yeah.
There's about 600 students, right, as I recall?
Gee, Pete's left.
Okay. No.
Mike, any idea on how many students?
It's over 600.
Oh, 600.
More than 600.
Thank you, Leanna.
600? Okay. So that's almost $1,000 a student. Seems like a big number, but.
Alan, we know that number. Give us 30 seconds.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry.
Johnny on the
No,
spot.
that's good.
It's at the end of the slideshow.
Well, maybe while he's looking that up, I'm looking at 2015-16 actual versus the budget for next year. It's about a 50% increase. And so I'm just wondering, do we do a multi-year contract? Is it a year-to-year contract? Is there any opportunity to sort of minimize the increase over time?
I'm going to take a guess without Pete here and say that that has to do with the expansion of the number of sports and the different sports that we've done. I know there was some increase this year because we had so many students interested in swim that we have 2 swim teams. So I think that what you might be seeing over time here is just different sports as Pete has enhanced the sports program, which has increased the cost. And busing and all of that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm still wondering though, and I don't know whether we budget or whether our contract is year to year, or do we have we looked at a multi-year contract to try to reduce the escalation of cost?
Yes. Anders and I met with Fort Kicks this time last year, I think it was. It is a year-to-year contract. He first was very resistant about talking about a multi-year contract, then said that he might be open to it, but he was very firm on his costs. And he wasn't going to wiggle on those. Yeah, and
It's also difficult to talk multi-year contract with Fort Kicks when we're thinking about.
We don't know what's happening with the buildings.
In terms of buildings too.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, but.
So we stopped talking about it.
Okay.
I got the number for the number of students, so I don't know how many of these are overlapped, but Pete sent me that we have 160 winter athletes, 298 spring athletes, and 225 fall athletes. So that was 160 in the winter, 298 in the spring, and 225 in the fall.
Wow.
683.
Yeah.
683.
And of course, that could be overlap there.
They're still paying.
Yeah, they still have to pay per sport, so.
Right.
Okay. So that is the summary for athletics in total for the program, because the costs are split out amongst the P&L, so I wanted to give everybody a summary of that. And if you go back to the main P&L, we talked about student programs, nutrition expense is budgeted to be flat. Core kicks, as we just noticed, is 148 of the 400, 152K is for the gym program. So that is a slightly higher number. And then some of the other athletics expenses that we talked about are in the 101. In the last section, kind of everything else, student transportation expense is budgeted up a little bit. That's primarily due to increases, I think, that we have in revenue as well. This year it was like oversold, as we had said, which is great. Lease, CAM, and taxes are up slightly based on our lease agreement and the rates that we have to pay. Facilities costs are up kind of based on run rate, and we own 165 this year, so we're getting more information on what it costs to run that building. We had some high snow removal costs that, we see. We have some interesting CapEx to help mitigate that next year, as we'll talk about shortly. Information technology includes some new Reddiker update and IT maintenance costs. We're not doing the lease on the servers this year. We actually are projecting or proposing a purchase of some of our equipment as opposed to a long-term lease. And supplies, pretty much the same. Everything else is kind of up and down over the course of the budget. So up here, down there, again, primarily based on run rate activity and any other projections that the teachers and administration had submitted during their budget requests. Depreciation expense, significant increase there, as I had mentioned. We have the new building depreciation, which is a full year as opposed to a partial year. We had significant asset purchases this year in equipment and IT. All of that is contributing to the increase in depreciation next year, as well as projections for the CapEx during next year, which is also significant. So we get a partial year on all of that. So the total expenses, $15.8 million versus $15,745,000 total increase, or 4.7%, for a projected net income of $181,000 in the 1920 year versus a projection of $531,000 positive. And keep in mind that includes conservative top line estimate. It doesn't build in any increases for the next year, which usually come midway when they occur. And fairly conservative on a lot of the other expenses, as some folks have already pointed out, especially given schedule changes. Maybe we don't need to pay out as many homeroom teachers and whatnot. So, any questions on the P&L? So, in the packet, all in order. Balance sheet.
So now that we have the number of students, so I have this right, that it costs $800 on average per student, for which we are subsidizing 60% or $350 worth.
One more time, Gene, what's your math? What do you
If
calculate?
there's 680 students, that's about $800 per student to enter into this activity, and we subsidize everything over the tiered rate of $325. Or thereabouts. This is a rhetorical point. You don't have to.
Per student, what did you get for account? Is that what you came up with?
Yeah.
What was it?
Well, it's $800, which seems like a big number to me, but.
Are you looking at the total cost?
Yeah, and average students, right? If there's 680 and it costs $545, that's $800.
I think that the different, it's on average. Obviously, math is math.
Yep.
We have the math teacher still here. Tom's still here. But the mix of the programs makes a difference as well.
Sure.
So I think it's worthwhile. We did a lot. I asked a lot, and Ellen and Leanna actually put a lot of detail together associated with the athletics. I think it's something that we'll continue to drill into on a regular basis to understand that mix and how it changes. And again, as we evaluate the budget in future periods, we're going to be looking at all these line items to understand what that means. We heard the curling team was new last year, for example. We got to rent ice time. Everyone knows ice time is pretty expensive. I don't know the exact numbers, but I You know, it's something that's new, kids are loving it, we had some, great results this year, but what does that cost and how many students? And those are the types of things that we'll continue to evaluate going forward.
Thank you. Is there enough variability in those costs that an average isn't that meaningful?
I think there is. Because if you have, for example, track has hundreds of kids.
Right.
Right? And so how much is the busing associated with track? It's very high, but there's very little equipment cost. If you look at swimming and curling, where you have to rent rink or swim or pool time, it gets to be much more expensive associated with that.
And we don't charge an athletic fee based on, it's the same to participate in an expensive sport as it is to right?
Yeah.
So is that my understanding?
That's true.
Right. Yeah. So that might be something, for example, that we decide to look at going forward, depending upon the quantity of students and what that costs for the participants. So just starting to build those analyses in detail for the future.
Yeah, I think there's a couple places in there to look at and say, what is the cost to do a particular sport? So if we're participating in an expensive sport, maybe we need maybe we need the cost structure to reflect the cost of us doing a particular sport. The second area I think we could consider thinking about is what is our process, or how do we evaluate selecting, adding, or subtracting sports? Clearly we've added sports over time, but we incur a 60%, roughly 60%. We're funding 60% of the sport activity. How many sports should we be doing? So I think that's a couple things to be thinking about going forward.
Did Leanna have something?
I think she had something to add. We don't have the intention of adding any additional sports, and we dropped wrestling for this school year too. Leanna?
Oh, I just wanted to mention that curling is considered a club, so that broke this year.
Yeah, that didn't fall under the athletic expenses.
Okay.
It's the club, student fees cover
Student fees cover that one.
4-minute warning.
Okay. So the balance sheet, really fast, good news. Two things to note. Still very favorable in our cash position. We have a very high fixed asset request this year, $732,000, which will require the school to dip into its cash reserves to cover that this year, $50,000. We all agreed that the items that are included in the budget for CapEx are important enough to warrant that reduction. That is why we have our cash balance, right, is to cover those types of expenses in the years when we need them and we don't have the cash flow. And it's not a significant reduction at all. So if we skip to the next page to quickly go over the capital assets, because I think this is important. We have quite a bit of hardware and software associated in the budget this year, $200,000 associated with that.
I'm sorry, what page are we referring to?
The capital asset page right behind the balance sheet.
Real little.
It's tiny.
Eye test.
Yeah. So we have some HP core switches, some wireless access points, really hardcore infrastructure. There have been significant school negative impacts associated with the aging equipment in place. There were two options that were investigated. One was to have a multi-year long-term lease where we outsourced support and equipment. And the second was to look at purchasing most of the equipment this year with cash and managing it. The second option was a slightly more conservative view, and the preferred option really to have it available and have the teachers support that and the IT team. So we agreed with that to purchase the equipment and hence go into the cash reserves to do so. And then the bulk of the other is related to the facilities. The most notable item is a proposal to add the new roof to the white building, $250,000. So that's an estimate for that. All right, everything else is the norms. Floors, benches, fire alarm, upgrades. Oh, and the other one that's really interesting, the team investigated the costs, which are so significant for ice melt and other work in the wintertime. And I don't know the exact savings, it was pretty significant, maybe $15,000 or $20,000?
It was actually $30,000 a year that we paid the landscaper for spreading salt this year. And what we've decided to do is we're proposing a gator that would have a hookup to it that would spread the salt, and for $3,000 a year, we can purchase the salt. And then Eric and Sean will salt the area ourselves. I think it's a huge, first of all, the cost per year to have the landscaper come and spread the salt is the same for 1 year as it would be for the gator.
Right, which will happen.
Yeah, and so the gator actually can be used year-round to move things. Our golf cart is dying quickly, and so we use that to transport students back and forth between Fort Kicks and the nurse's office if someone has a little accident. And then the guys can just use it in between the 3 buildings. But I think it pays itself back in 1 year.
Yep.
And we find that with the landscaper, if we have a patch of ice, they charge us the full cost to go all the way around the whole campus to do salt, where Eric and Sean can just do spot areas.
So I'm sorry if this is a dumb question, but what's a gator?
It's like a RV. What's it, like one of those road vehicles?
Are you online, Jess? Literally type in John Deere Gator, and it's a
Yes.
specific green and
Yes.
yellow cart. It holds 2 people in the front and then can have a modified back. So the back can be either a bed, like a truck bed, or it can be
It's a truck?
seats, like a truck bed. It's not a truck though, it's like about the size of
like
a golf
a mini.
cart, only
It looks
on
like an
steroids.
ultimate golf cart.
Yeah.
Okay, truck was all I needed. Thank you.
So it's cool.
They all enjoy it.
There you go.
So, multi-purpose and should be used year-round.
It's a truck. I got
You
it.
can borrow Sean's.
All right.
Yeah.
I mean, you're more than welcome to come hang out at the barn, we use them all the time on the farm.
There you go.
Yeah.
over who gets
Any other questions? Ed?
Yeah, just real quick, did we know when we bought the building, I don't recall whether the roof was going to be a future near-term expense?
I think so.
Yeah.
All the roofs.
All roofs, yeah.
All the facilities were in need of,
Mhm.
repair and upgrade, so.
Okay.
And it's an estimate, and I'll look closely at, obviously, savings. The only final thing I want to talk about before we move on to the vote, sorry, I know I'm over by a minute or two. The profit decrease this year to $181,000 projected versus the estimate this year is definitely lower. We obviously want to maintain and increase our cash reserves for the school as much as possible. But there's a lot that needs to be done this year. And, Ellen and team have agreed and understand that to the extent that anything comes up, things always come up, that they're very much looking to make sure we maintain this level and not go into the black or reduce it at all, and they're very proactively going to be managing their budget to stay within those numbers. And it is a conservative budget.
Of the decrease in net income, how much of the additional, how much of that is one time and how much of that is ongoing?
So this salary increase of $400,000 is absolutely, once you increase it, right? That's kind of a once you buy in, it's forever, unless you change your head count for the most part, right, and your mix. Professional development, again, is kind of in line with what we always see. And real estate costs, they do fluctuate. They tend to go up over time anyway, so it's $120,000 of the increase.
So then these tend to be ongoing costs, so I wouldn't
Primarily.
expect this surplus number to go back up again. This becomes the new normal.
It does and it doesn't, because within, for example, IT costs, that might be a one-time
Okay,
increase
yeah.
of $39,000 associated with some of the software purchases that may not be repetitive. And ongoing, when we look at this, I mean, the budget is the budget. We have to live within the revenue that we receive. So to the extent that, God forbid, the revenue decreases due to mix of students or, budgets in the towns that send us students go down and we have to take a hit, then we'll have to evaluate the budget overall, right? Yeah. But salaries are your largest fixed line item. That is the one that really drives the majority of the cost.
So it's salaries and related benefits is number 1.
Real
I think
estate.
facilities costs is number 2.
Yeah.
And everything else.
Yeah, depreciation expense is another significant item, and
Right.
again, that one is up and down depending upon timing. So $700,000 of CapEx this year, half of that is going to be a 3 to 4 year life. So it's going to stick with us for 3 to 4 years. That's more of a cash outflow, so that'll go down. it won't be as significant. This is unusual. Usually it's $300,000 to $400,000 versus $700,000, for example.
All right, good, thank you.
So, was everyone ready to take a vote? Do I propose
Well, first, is there any other
Any other
questions
questions?
about the budget?
about the budget? Oh, we have one.
Have you guys looked into solar for the roof over there? Because a lot of times the solar companies will pay for a new roof. You're talking $250,000. And where your building is already pretty much HVAC-wise where it needs to be as far as rooftop units. If there's room, a lot of times if it's warranted to the solar companies, they'll pay for a new roof. Just asking the question.
Thank you, Nick. Yeah, it's worth looking at.
Yep.
Yeah, it's true.
Could you take that as a?
Sure.
Okay.
Yep, sure. Leon and I, we've
That's why
already
we
made
need
eye contact.
construction
We're
guys.
on it.
All right.
Yeah.
We're on it.
All right. Any
Other
other
questions?
questions or comments? All right.
So
So
you can make it. Would you like to make a motion to?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the budget as presented by administration and the finance committee.
Second.
All in favor?
Am I allowed to vote? It has salaries?
Yes.
Okay.
It's
Sometimes
you're, I think
It just
yes,
doesn't work.
because it's part of the overall budget. But you could also abstain. How's that for a non-answer? Any, all opposed? Motion that passes unanimously. Thank you.
We also have the financials. I'm not going to go into them in detail now for the last 2 months. Nothing significant to report, so enjoy them. If you haven't already had a chance to review them, if you have any questions, let me know. Get back on time.
All right.
I haven't really had a chance to enjoy them.
Again, thanks for many people for getting this budget put together. This was a big, large exercise. So I'm going, as I described, we're going to go up next to the executive director's report.
Okay.
First, I guess I would like to say thank you for all our wonderful teachers for being here tonight and taking time out of your evening. And for those who have left and for our kids, please thank them. Really appreciate you taking time to be here. It means a great deal. And also welcome to Maura. We're very happy to have you here. So I got to meet Maura a month or so ago, 2 months ago. And I said, wow, you should really consider a board's position. And so here she is. So we're very happy to welcome you, Maura. Thank you very much for your service over the next year or two. Okay, so here we get started. Here's our board report. We're going to start with some highlights of what has been happening and what will be. We got a little razzle-dazzle time. And then about really 2/3 of my report are some of the 4 key points in favor of the proposal for AMSA's new schedule. So we'll be talking about that. And then we did a survey. We're going to look at the survey results, the concerns that we heard from families, and different ways that we're going to address those concerns. And then just an end of the year thank you to everyone for a great 2018-19. Okay, so we had a senior awards night. This is another one of those wonderful evenings that we all enjoy. A special thank you to Holly Johnson, Peter Prue, who are our 12th grade advisors. Also NHS advisors, you may remember from last month that we thank them, and also Lynn McCluskey and her team, who they do everything in the background to make these evenings just a wonderful experience. We had department awards. We added a chorus award this year. We also honored 2 National Merit semi-finalist scholars. We awarded the Kia Kaha Award to Rachel Wang, and that's for a student who's shown great resilience during her time here. And the Eagle Award, which is our highest award here at AMSA, to Senior Nathan Lee, who is an outstanding young man and a wonderful representative of our school. On May 16th, we had Arts Night, and it was a fantastic night. It was a little different this year. We had All of the art displayed over in the White Building, and then the music was here. We had strings, we had jazz. Jess had a cappella and chorus here. It was a wonderful evening. Great turnout from families. This is some of the artwork. The one in the middle there, that was the front cover to the program, which is a nice representation of everything, and then some of our student work on either side of that. The pictures over here of the woman, those are done by one of our AP art students. So upcoming events, things that we have coming up, we have new student game night or pizza night orientation, and we also do a parent Q&A time panel that Mike Naraki and I will be working on with some other folks. And that's June 4th at 6 p.m. in the upper school cafeterias where the kids are. They have games, they have pizza. The school counselors from the lower school come and teach them about the school, and it's a very nice night for them. And then in the lower school cafeteria, that's where we'll be meeting with the parents to go over all kinds of things about the school, the lunch programs, the buses, and all kinds of things like that. And to also explain to the parents what it's like to be an AMSA student, what's expected from the families, the level of rigor and academic excellence that we're expecting their little munchkins to buy into and to learn to love and find great joy in their learning here. Then we have the class of 2019 graduation, June 7th, Friday night. You're all invited. I hope that you'll be there. Please let Sarah Snow know if you want to join us sitting on the stage. We'd love to have you. And that's at 6:30 at the Hanover Theater in Worcester. Then we have 8th grade step-up night on June 12th at 6:30 at the Best Western. And then we have sports night, sports award night for the spring, June 13th at 6 p.m. at Fort Kicks. And then we have our annual faculty staff barbecue on June 14th. It's going to be here this year. It's going to be awesome, and you can see we have a very busy June coming up. Add in a couple days of biology, MCAS, and we are rocking here at AMSA. And now we have our razzle-dazzle time. All right, so we had, I thought this was a really cool video. Mr. Finkel pared it down a little bit, but this is robotics class. They're doing a little robot battle here, and Ken Noble is the teacher for this class.
But it's not connected to cycle. Hopefully those are the same we do. Like the... Oh, it's mine. Freaking out. Oh my god, it isn't even turning. Alright, you know what you're trying to do, right? Nope. Yep. Why is there so much action?
So you'll also notice that the kids are dressed in Hawaiian shirts. This was senior prank day, and they had a tailgate out here, and they were all dressed in Hawaiian shirts. They had a great time. So here's the pace car. We got the golf cart up and running. As soon as they left, the juniors all started chanting seniors, seniors, and that was because they were happy that they got to be seniors. So that was a really fun day. I think one of the things that was most notable to me, and I think this is the third one, I know many of you have been to many of these, but this was my third one of these breakfasts, because the juniors bring breakfast in for the seniors that morning, and we couldn't get the seniors to leave. I've never seen so many tears and crying seniors. Wasn't it something, Jess?
It was the cryingest senior breakfast, because that was not my third. It was my, as long as we've been having them, I've been coming. And yeah, more tears on that breakfast than any of the other breakfasts.
They were such a close class, and they were just so sad.
Some of the boys were, just the boys
the
were
boys.
crying. Oh, no, yeah. It was,
Yeah. It was the most incredible thing. It was very heartwarming, actually. And we couldn't get them to leave here, to get them into their cars, to get them to drive, to get them the heck off campus. But anyway, all right, so now we're going to go into talking about the schedule. And this is, I think we've got such a clear view from all of the public messages that were given. I think that everyone, I think it's very clear why we think this is so important. But I'm going to run through these slides with you very, very quickly. So there was a 3-step process that we went through. This was, as you heard from Christy J. and Brian, this was an initiative that's grassroots, right? This is the foundation of what we want in AMSA. We want our teachers to be able to be creative, to be able to problem solve with us, to work with us collaboratively, to create ideas to make our school a better place. And this is exactly what happened in this situation. And then we took all that information and we consulted and went and got a vote from the governance committee of the Board of Trustees. And they, Roger will tell you what their decision was, but at that time also suggested that we did a community survey, which was part of our plan. We did a family forum where parents could come and talk to us. We did a community council meeting that we held in our office yesterday afternoon. It was all over AMSA chat. We read all the feedback there. We've received a lot of feedback. And so everyone had a chance to weigh in. All right, just to review very quickly, this information was given to you last month. It's still 8 periods a day. There's still 45 minutes. The start time is 10 minutes earlier. The passing time, it goes from 5 minutes between classes to 4 minutes. No homeroom. They report directly to first period. First period, we're looking at 5 minutes longer to fit in the pledge and quick announcements, and the day still ends at 2:45. All right, so we want to look at those 4 core points. The first thing we talked about was culture, and that is that collaborative open door policy that we've been working so hard over the last couple of years to create. Every time our teachers come and they've got these fantastic ideas because they're amazing people, we want to hear what they have to say and honor that and respect that and see if we can make it work. And so they use data that I can't even explain to you. I would have to have Brian Bacala do that to determine whether this was feasible, it was something that it was going to work, and what they brought to us, as far as we can see, it does work. And we want to focus on students and student learning because we're a school and that's what we hear about. We're here about our students and making them the priority. And you heard testament from them on how important this is to them. And then, once again, that we're always looking for ways to improve AMSA. It's one of the great things about a charter school. 96% of our staff in the initial survey were in favor, and 72% were in favor on the community survey. It's not often you get 72% of people to agree on anything. So we were very happy with those results. And then also, what we've been talking about is the time on learning. Each year, our students are missing hours and hours and hours of learning. In the fall alone, they lost 148,000 minutes of education. You heard Pete Jones and how he feels that this schedule change can reduce that significantly. Next one, and our key point for number 4 is the balance of life. Our students, when we did the fall student survey, what they talked about really was a balance of their lives are out of balance. And they needed some extra time. We had student after student make the suggestion in that survey, actually, to drop homeroom. They didn't feel that they used it, that they utilized it. It isn't really at the place of community that it used to be here at AMSA. The kids are walking in 1 minute before the bell. The lower school kids still get DS, so they are still having that kind of a connection community experience. So there were some community concerns, and we received about 255 comments back on the survey, some of them very, very positive, please, please, please do this, and others that had some concerns. So we want to address the concerns. Anders, can you just go back for me one more second? Thanks. We want to thank everyone, of course, for all their feedback, and we want to work with our community to address all of their concerns. Next one. Thanks. Okay, so it really, kind of came down to three main concerns. It was the transition time. Is there really going to be enough time? After school hours, right? Because instead of students ending the day at 3:15, it's 2:45. That's a concern for parents who are working and things like that. And there was some concern about, is it going to hurt community not to have the homeroom, or is that a time, for students to settle in? Next one? Yeah, thanks. Okay, the transition time between classes. This has been timed and tested and timed and tested again. If you saw the video with our wonderful principal, Mike Naraki, and our vice principal, Brianna Murphy, you would have seen a lovely quick step between the two furthest buildings, and Mike Finkel for putting that together for us. And one thing that you can see from that, it took them 3 hours. It took them 3 minutes and 30 seconds to go from the two furthest classrooms. But Mike Finkel also stopped them 3 different times to film from different angles. So that's something to consider. There was a lot more room in there in that timing that you don't see. We know that it can be done. We also know that if, as Mr. Morris mentioned, that if you're looking out your window, you can see the kids gathering and they're having a great old time out there, which is fine, but they can be a little bit more efficient, I think. And also that because, once again, we're a charter school, we have the flexibility to make changes. If the teachers come to us at any point in the year and say, Alan, this is a real problem. The kids are chronically late. We don't know what to do. Then we adjust it, right? We sit a group of people down again and we say, all right, let's go back and look at this again and let's make suggestions. And I know that with the teachers that we work with and the administrators, that there isn't one problem that we can't solve if we're working and solving it together. Okay, so the biggest piece of feedback, I think, or worry, maybe even more than feedback, because there were people who said that I think this is a great idea, but I'm worried. I have a middle schooler and I'm worried about that extra half hour. And so right now our homework club is for 6th to 8th graders. There is a cost to it. Audrey Cook runs it. She's one of our history teachers. And the students are there. They report by 3:30 and they can get picked up any time between 3:30 and 6 o'clock. One of the suggestions, and that got picked up by a number of parents, was, well, okay, we understand that this change is probably good for the school. It's going to take my family more time to adjust. How can you help us out without this costing us a lot more money for the care over at the homework club? And we think we've come up with a few ideas on how we can extend the homework club for between 3 and 3:40 for just the one school year and cover the cost. So you saw in the budget that we have homeroom, that stipends for a homeroom is about $1,500. We have 40 some odd homeroom teachers, 42, Mike? 42 homeroom teachers. And we have that budgeted, that's $1,500 times 42. That's also mentioned in the teacher's contract, so that money is there for at least this school year. But if we had opportunities for teachers to earn those stipends by covering that 40 minutes, then and Mike and I need to work out exactly how many minutes, how many that would be to be equivalent. But we could have one person, Bethany could take day 1, and Lisa doesn't work for the school, but if she was a teacher, she could take day 2, and we rotate it through. That would help those teachers who don't want to lose the income actually earn the stipend through covering that homework club period. And we could do it in the cafeteria where, Bethany is here, she's got 30 kids, we know the parents are on their way, they're coming at 3:30, 3:40. The other homework club kids who are here till 6, they're in their room with Audrey. And we could be flexible with that, because all of a sudden if it's 60 kids, then we have Bethany do it and we have Brian do it, and we use it, we go that way. The other thing is we have Media Center, and that is kind of an open area. It's done over here. Sean Kessler does that for us. The students do not pay for that right now. It's a drop-in. The high school kids, 9th to 12th grade, usually used by 9th and 10th graders. But once again, it's the same thing. Sean gets paid for that now. If we find that all of a sudden it's doubling or tripling, then we open that up for more teachers. And they could, at least 16 teachers could earn stipends that way, and maybe up as many as 32.
5 minutes.
Okay, there we go. All right, that's a great idea. We've talked to Steve Smith, our union rep, about that. That's an option. But there's other ways that we're working on where they can earn the stipends too. We don't want anyone to lose any income. All right, removing homeroom. Lower school students still have their directed study period, so they had that time together with that teacher. We're also hoping that that first period teacher, where they're in there for a few minutes longer, that they'll have an opportunity to, you know, it's their history teacher, they ask about their history project or whatever, that we can develop those kind of relationships there too. The students are still welcome to come in at the building at 7:30 in the morning, so that's not a problem. They can meet with people here. We'll have more supervision because we'll have more teachers looking to earn those stipends, and they can socialize down here before they go up to first period. And the high school students, as I said, typically buzz in right under the bell.
Or right over.
Or right over the bell, yeah. I swear I'm hearing Ms. Bowen. All right, so just once again, this is May, and so just an opportunity once again to thank. I guess I would also like to add a thank you to Roger for stepping up as our new chair, and Raul as vice chair. Kristen stays on, and Liz and Jill. Thank you so much, all of you, for all that you give to our school. I'm so grateful. Those of you who will be transitioning off the board. We'll talk about that next month because we will miss you very deeply. So thank you all for stepping up, for continuing to give to AMSA. I know it takes a lot from you, so thank you for that. We could not run the school without you. They would shut us down, so thank you. And then just at end of the year, thank you so much to our wonderful staff, administrators, teachers, counselors. You mean more to us than we could ever express to you in words, honestly. Your passion, your commitment to this school, to this community is inspiring to us each and every day, so thank you. It's a wonderful, wonderful blessing to be part of this community. We have many challenges ahead for next year, but I know that as a group, as a community, that we're going to be able to meet every single one of them. And our commitment to you, to the board, and to our wonderful teachers and community is that we will continue to build our community of trust and respect, and of that you can be assured. So thank you. That's my report for tonight.
We still have one more minute.
Question. Any question?
Happy summer and go Eagles.
Go Eagles. Questions for Ellen?
Oh, questions.
Good.
All right, thank you.
I got just one comment since we have a minute. I did attend the senior award night, and I gotta say, every time I come to the school, every time I meet a new student, I do not cease to be impressed by the level of excellence that our students showcase. And just the capstone projects was the first thing. There was a published author, there was an MIT intern that worked with things that he tried to explain to me were completely over my head. There was a student that tried to work with a 3D printer to do something. He couldn't achieve that, but he actually, the limitations were on the printer, so he built his own. So, those kinds of things, that's what makes AMSA. So it was, I apologize that I had to leave early that night, but what I saw that night, and it wasn't just technology stuff, it was arts, there was a rock band, there was a cello piece. It was an amazing night, and I didn't even stay there all night. So thank all of you that make that possible, and all of our students that live our core values, and that was definitely just a great example of that. So thank you for the opportunity to enjoy that.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Jill, parent report?
So I only had one parent with the concern regarding the schedule change, and it was primarily the pickup time
changing. And her suggestion was to actually have homework club be free until 3:45. And then she also mentioned that maybe Honor Society students could get some mentoring or some volunteer experience by offering to tutor during that time, and it might take some of the pressure off the teachers because, you know, the National Honor Society student is mentoring or tutoring someone during that period, and then the volunteer hours could be counted for that student. So
we do have a mentoring program.
Yeah. Yep. And then maybe they could be in that homework club during that time period. Yeah. So that was her suggestion. That was the only parent that I spoke to regarding the schedule change.
Any questions for Jill? Jess?
So do you want me to just focus on the time change stuff?
So I'd like to just focus on the time change, but so my plan is to do that.
And then we'll come back
We'll
to
do a
that.
vote on the board aspect of the changing the length of the school day, and then I'll come back to you for other comments related, other faculty feedback.
So my job is easy on the time change because so many of the faculty members came and spoke without having to come through me, which is great. Then it makes my report much more believable. But you saw the numbers, 96% of faculty members are in favor of the school change. It was a faculty-led initiative to even start the process of doing this. And I think you've heard all of the reasons, the number of hours missed in class. When you see it in the aggregate, we sort of all knew individually we were missing these kids, and then when they put the number up about how many hours, we were all just like, oh my goodness. And I agree with Tom Mazzarito. At first I'm like, 10 minutes earlier, no, because I'm the last person here in the morning already. But the impact of this missed time for teachers, kids have to make that time after school. They're coming, you're chasing them down to get homework. Bethany Bartolini's example of like running a simulation and then half your kids are missing, or any kind of group thing that you've planned. It's very disruptive, not only to those athletes, but to the classroom atmosphere as a whole. And it's been a problem at AMSA literally since we started. And I think for me, who's been here a long time, one of the most exciting things is this is a problem that no one has really come up with a good solution for until now. When we had this problem a few years ago, it was actually why we went to the rotating schedule. So our schedule, you don't have the same class last period all the time. And the reason we went to that rotating schedule was if you had a last period class, those kids missed your class every single day. I mean, it was disastrous. So that was a sort of a temporary way to fix this. And this is really a much more, holistic way to really address this problem. Because so many people have kind of gone over the points that I have on my list of things to talk about, I'm going to add a couple of new things. Number one is, I think any kind of choice that you encounter in life, this comes from my teaching of economics, is there's always trade-offs, right? Any choice has costs. I think it's really important that sometimes I think it's easy to think about what the costs are involved in implementing this program, the costs to the kids who are missing homeroom, or the costs to the parents who have to pick up. But I think the cost of not changing it also needs to be reminded. The status quo, the cost of that is this missed class time that is so disruptive. I also think that teachers, administrators, and parents have really thought in really smart ways about what the unintended consequences of a change like this might bring. Things like homework time. One of the teachers emailed me and said, you know, I'm in favor of this plan, but I want to make sure that we're thinking about our middle school students that might not have that sort of starting place to their day. How are we going to make sure that their day starts off on the right foot? So I think that that this process, it might seem like it's happened fast, but it really hasn't, and people have really done their due diligence in anticipating what the problems might be, and thinking about ways that we can mitigate those changes. So this will lead to this, but we can fix that, or we can deal with that by doing Y. For instance, the passing time. As a matter of fact, I remember when we went to the 5-minute passing time, and this is absolutely true. We went to a 5-minute passing time because somebody said, it's so weird that the end of the class time is very random. Can't we just make them all end on a 5? And that would just make it easier? And someone's like, that's a good idea. So the 5-minute passing time that we have was arbitrarily chosen anyways. The 4 minutes is very reasonable. And if it's not, maybe there's the ways that we can open up new pathways. For instance, when the kids eat lunch here, they're only allowed to go, and if they have lunch, if they eat lunch but they have to go to the White Building, they have to go up these stairs and out the front door and then to the White Building. We don't allow them to use this exit here, but maybe if the 4 minutes is problematic, maybe that's something we can do. We can find sort of another, open up more ways. So these unintended consequences have been considered. I just want you to know that this decision is not something that people are going into lightly. I also want to mention as a personal anecdote that before I worked at AMSA, I worked at Westboro High and I worked at West Boylston High, and both of those went through significant schedule changes while I was there. When I was at West Boylston, we went to a block schedule and dropped the homeroom, and of course there was much consternation and gnashing of teeth and oh my goodness, and what is the consequences? What's going to happen if kids don't have homeroom? How will they know if their library books are overdue? I remember was one of the really big problems. That's how long ago it was. We had libraries and library cards. Charming. But I think that what you find is that kids these adjustments do happen. And I think we as adults kind of put that worry onto kids more than they really need. At Westboro, they also dropped the homeroom. And we, after 2 or 3 weeks, nobody even remembered what homeroom was. We still will figure out a way to get the Pledge of Allegiance in and say the announcements. And I think that the adjustment period will be shorter than people anticipate. That's my thoughts on all that. And I just want to reiterate how much support this has from both faculty members and staff. I said I was done, I'm not. I think it's very clear that the weight of this change might be felt more heavily on people whose transportation to AMSA comes from out of town. But I think when you look at the picture of everybody at large, I think the benefits outweigh the costs. That's what I've got.
All right.
If anybody has questions, I'm happy to answer them about how the day works or how the schedule goes.
Questions for
The
Jess?
only question I had is, so with the buses, like what's up with the buses? Nobody's talked about how that is changing or not changing.
So it might be better for Ellen, but yeah, go ahead, Ellen.
Yeah, the buses, so back when AMSA started, and probably one of the reasons they went to this rotating schedule instead of shortening the day, was because we did a bus share within town, but we don't anymore. There's dedicated buses for AMSA.
Oh,
yeah.
so
and so we called the bus company.
They didn't have any issue with
2 months
shifting the
ago.
time
No.
to meet your needs. Wow, that's great.
No, Anne took care of all of that.
Cool. Very lucky.
Yes, that was one of the things that made it possible.
Yeah.
So is there any significant downside?
I have to be here 10 minutes earlier. Did you miss that, Chris?
And she lives 3 minutes from you.
There were middle school parents who were concerned about not having homeroom, but
I think we addressed that.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, at least for the 1 year, it gives families time to kind of readjust.
Yeah.
Well, homeroom or pickup time? Because those are two different things.
Well, the pickup time was the biggest.
Yeah, the homeroom was a concern because the 6th graders, the younger students get more out of homeroom than the high school students.
And they're missing 12 minutes, honestly, and 12 minutes of that, sometimes it's 7 or 8, 9, 10 minutes of announcements of every kid who's run every race in track and their time and where they placed. So we can really bring that down. And we've talked about different ways that we can make sure those announcements are still getting out there. And they're out there on Facebook and Instagram, and we'll have them up on the TV sets. But probably having, send them out to teachers every morning too, so if kids have the question, is robotics happening today, they can look at the sheets.
I did have a student tell me that they were worried that they would lose homework because they didn't know when they were going to do their homework. So if you're doing your homework in the homeroom, first of all, you're doing it wrong, kids. And second of all, you're going to have an extra half an hour in the afternoon. You could do your homework then.
Yeah.
Can I add something?
Please.
Yes, sir.
as a former AP teacher and soon-to-be AP teacher, College Board has released a whole bunch of revisions to their curriculum in many, many subjects, and they've indicated a number of lessons for each subject. And it's an incredibly tight schedule to teach what the AP wants us to teach. And every single lesson, every single minute of an AP class is absolutely vital to the success of our kids. And when we have kids in AP classes, in all our classes, here I'm speaking strictly of AP classes, when we have kids leaving those classes once or twice a week, it has a major impact on how we plan our lessons and on how kids are able to learn and access that curriculum. So that's just strictly from an AP perspective, each and every minute is absolutely vital to the academic success of our kids.
Other questions for Jess? So, as governance chair, we discussed this in even more detail at the governance meeting. The governance committee voted unanimously to approve the shortening of the school day. So, so to set the context of the discussion, we as a board are responsible for voting, because this is a modification to the charter to change the length of the school day. And so that part is a board responsibility. Within the minutes of the school day, how that is done, whether we have 4-minute time or passing time, or whether we have homeroom or don't have homeroom, that is an administrative piece. So what the governance committee is recommending is that the time on subject with this change in schedule is, we still have 45 minutes per subject per class. That's unchanged. We are shrinking the school day by up to we're recommending for approval to allow the administration to shrink the length of the school day for up to 30 minutes. And that's the motion on the table.
So if we just have one more outline, so it's basically homework minutes are 7 minutes or 12 minutes?
They're 12 minutes.
And then the total minutes 5 to 4 is how many minutes?
It's another 7, Brian?
7?
Yeah, 7 transitions.
And then what was the additional?
There's one less
21?
transition, because there's no transition from homeroom to first period.
And that was a 5-minute transition?
And the intake is, there's sort of an intake period and then a homeroom period, and then you go to first period. And so the first period is sort of shifting back into that like pre-homeroom limbo section.
So is that the gap of 6 minutes somewhere that we're getting? Because it's 7 minutes, 12 minutes, and 5 minutes?
Do we have the, can I put it
10
on?
minutes early.
Oh.
You don't have to.
Do you have your
I know everybody in the governance has already agreed. I just, it wasn't kind of mathematically working in my head. That's why I was asking.
But it's
So it's
really not our
shifting 10 minutes
decision.
So there's a shift for the rest. So it's a shift. It's not like a change. Got it. That's all. That's right, because you started earlier.
Condensing.
Right.
10 minutes.
Good.
Do you want to see the side by side?
We found it,
good.
Brian.
We got it. I forgot the earlier shift.
So we're not starting a half an hour earlier because?
No.
We're starting 10 minutes earlier.
Yeah,
No,
that's-
but, I
that's
mean,
good.
if the issue is the end of the day problem, which I have encountered and I understand completely, we could just start the whole school day earlier. Keep it exactly the way it is and move it up by half an hour.
Well,
If there's no bus problem.
Yeah, no, but at some point, there's a contractual problem with teachers.
Yeah. Right now,
Well,
the
I'm sure with
contract
the
doesn't have to be
parents.
touched. The
I'm sorry?
contract, right now, the contract, the CBA doesn't have to be adjusted.
Okay.
The way that it reads right now, it would be if we did that. But I also feel we have teachers that travel from far away, one almost an hour and a half one way. And so, I feel that there's some consideration too on our adults and our students who, I wouldn't want to go quite that early the other way and shift the whole thing a half hour.
Yeah, because let's not forget, they're also trying to start school later.
Yeah,
For
that
everyone
there's
else.
some studies out there
Yeah.
about that too. But we're still considerably later than everyone else.
Yeah. So, that's all, thank you, I appreciate that.
Roger, I have a question. What exactly does DEIS need to approve? Just that we shorten the day, or do they need to approve the details of the schedule?
So we are going to be going to DEIS to make a charter, a change to our charter. So our charter specified the length of our school day.
Okay.
And so what we are going to do is to say we are going to shrink the length of the school day as described in our charter. And so it's a charter modification that we are, as the Board of Trustees, we are approving.
So there's no concern for some odd reason they would not approve it? We're just assuming disapprovals, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Right.
okay.
Right, well, we have, so, the original charter I'll just restate it. The original charter specified the length of the school day, and because we are changing the length of our school day from what our initial charter said, that we need to go, we as a board need to vote to amend effectively we're amending the charter to say our length of our school day is no longer.
Okay. So they don't need to approve.
But that should be a
anything.
non-issue as far as these is
It's a
concerned.
non-issue.
Yeah.
In fact, if it was only by 10 minutes of a change, we wouldn't even have to notify them.
Okay.
But it's because it's more than 10 minutes.
Other board discussion? So at this point, I'd like to make a motion to allow for the school day to be shortened for up to 30 minutes.
So moved.
Second.
So we have Chris and Liz. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Jill, moving onward, Jill, is there any other feedback that was not school day related?
So I just wanted to say that there were 4 or so emails that I was copied on from parents that Ellen responded to very promptly and very professionally, and honestly, she did really good responses to the emails that came through questioning the schedule change. So as the parent rep, I just read them. I didn't respond. She did a great job. And then, more on a personal note, I just wanted to let everyone know for fundraising purposes, we have a denim day at our firm every Friday, and if you wear jeans, you are supposed to donate a certain amount of money, and then the firm matches it. So last Friday, the firm made a donation of $160 to the annual giving campaign. Yay! For all these poor jeans. So that was it.
Thank you, Jill. Jess, do you have other feedback not related to the school day?
I do have a couple other notes not related to the day.
I have no idea how much time you have, so go for it.
You have no idea?
No, because we
lost
kind of-
track.
Well, that's a bad idea.
So I have an infinite amount of time,
So you
Ro?
got 10 minutes in the agenda, and I don't know how much of those 10 minutes already went by, but
All right, I'll try and.
you have 2 minutes.
8:30.
It's a rough crowd. So a couple other notes that I wanted to mention. Ellen mentioned Arts Night that happened a couple of weeks, last week, 2 weeks ago. That was a lovely night. The videos of that are on YouTube. We heard performances from the chorus and the a cappella group, as well as the string ensemble and the jazz band. And those videos are on YouTube. And then this time, and Ellen kind of mentioned this, but I think there's an important note here for the board. The student artwork, the visual art was all displayed in the White Building, so we asked kind of people to go back and forth. And we have a postmortem to talk about how that change went amongst all the art teachers next week. But it's a lovely, lovely night, and if you get a chance to come, you should come. But one of the things that I just, every Arts Night that happens is just a sort of reminder of how limited we are with facilities here. And I don't think that we can kind of let an event like that pass by without kind of mentioning it. All of our musical groups perform without any kind of music room or music room to practice. We have no stage, we have no piano, we have no place for the audience to sit. The visual art has to be transported and tacked up in a matter of hours. You should see when they go up, there's like just an army of blue masking tape. And the amount of work that the art teachers do to get ready, and then it all has to come down, and so then our students don't get to kind of see. I've been to other schools and they have these arts nights and that student artwork is displayed for weeks, and I just, I think it's always a good little reminder to say how much great stuff is being done here, and also where we could take that if we had facilities that allowed us to kind of really shine on those kinds of things. So just wanted to kind of mention that. May is super busy. If you've never been in a middle school or high school, if your kids are coming here, you probably noticed there's been all kinds of testing going on that teachers are involved in. Testing at AMSA requires a lot of sort of upending the schedule, and people's classrooms get moved and things happen. There's field trips that are happening. There's arts nights that's happening. There's awards night. I think we had about 272 different awards nights for all of the seniors and the athletes and the arts, and we've been very, very busy. So I think teachers are kind of looking forward to seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. We have exams coming up. We're almost done MCAS, a little bit more, and of course graduation is coming up too. So teachers are looking forward to, during that last week of school, getting their schedules for next year. One thing that we've added the last year or two is a chance for students and teachers to see their schedule before they break for the summer. We never used to have that. We used to get it like the day before school started, if we were lucky. There was one year where we just let the kids wander around for a day, and then we're like, we're gonna have schedules tomorrow. But those days are long gone. I wish I was exaggerating. So we have what's called a move-up day, where the kids get to run through their next year's schedule. They get to meet their teachers. We're looking forward to that. And that was very successful last year, so teachers and students, I imagine, are looking forward to that. There was, at our last all-staff meeting, a notice to the staff about budget cuts, and that the thing that Kristen mentioned about the money coming in from the state was less, and that there needed to be tightening up. There was a major announcement made where the K-cups provided in the teachers' lounges would no longer be provided by the school. I'm not sure what kind of outrage was predicted by that change, but most of the teachers were like, okay. So just...
we expected an earthquake.
I hadn't heard anybody that was outraged. I mean, we're all a little bit mildly disappointed, as free coffee is always a good perk, but for the most part, that went over. I will say that teachers get nervous when budget cuts get announced. So the idea of not getting new textbooks or seeing RIFs or anything like that. If it was just the K-cups, I think we're all good. But keep that. Let's don't get carried away. And then the only kind of other thing I kind of wanted to mention is that a few teachers came to me at the end of the year. Discipline issues are always a little bit wigglier. I'm going to use the word wigglier. So I think especially with we're a little bit light on administration, and so I think a few teachers were like, I hope this is just sort of a combination of end of the year and the loss of Mr. Fryer. But a few teachers were sort of feeling like maybe there needed to be some tightening there. But probably we'll have to wait to the beginning of next year, because no one's putting the toothpaste back in that tube at this point. That's all I've got.
Any questions for Jess? Great.
How'd I do, Raul?
Good.
Do we have time to watch my video of me singing with my daughter at the arts night? We could put it up if you want.
It was awesome. I saw it on Facebook.
Is that a trick question?
All right. So
it's my turn?
Yes.
You have 3 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, somebody else needs to be timekeeper while I'm on here. So one thing that we... Just make sure that this comes up.
You've got to have half as many issues as I did, so just to make me feel better.
Just in sleep mode, or is it off?
There's something that's a projector?
I think you gotta turn it on, it should be green.
It looks like it's red.
It's red or orange.
There we go.
Go green.
So a little bit of background on why we're doing the fall 2018 Pulse Survey result review in May. There's no explanation other than we never brought it to the board. So we looked at, the results were published on the website. They've been there for now, at least since the last board meeting. But we never discussed it on the board. So this is just our way of checking the box and saying we've discussed it on the board. But more importantly than checking the box, we actually were discussing in the survey task force what should be the real schedule or the real calendar for both surveys. The fall, as you know, we have a pulse survey in the fall, and then we have the spring survey, which we just conducted. So I'm not going to go over it, but I'm just going to mention the fact that we worked with administration on putting together a plan that you can't really read there, but it's basically saying that we're going to start form a task force in September, and then we're spelling out everything that needs to happen and when. And it's relative to it's kind of T-minus weeks, TV, the time at which we open the survey window. So we discussed this, we agreed on this, the process is there. I don't think this is necessarily, this is not a policy, this is not something we need to vote on, but this is our way of saying that next time we're going to do it when we say we're going to do it, as opposed to months later. Just as a side note, and this just happened coincidentally, today at least I received, and I'm sure Lynn as well, an email from Panorama that the results from our spring surveys are available for the task force. So can't talk about these today because we haven't actually seen them, but they're available. So expect, if we try to adhere to this timeline, expect that to happen soon. And I don't want to say in the next board meeting, but probably, if not, the following after that. All right, so that's the background of why we're doing this today. I thought, so like I said, those are on the website. The actual survey results and the summary report that comes out of Panorama is on the website. I included them. I sent those to Sarah, but I don't think those got printed for the packets. But I have them up here if you guys want to get into it. But what I did want to do was highlight some overall observations. So number one, there were no surprises. The kind of issues that we saw as issues coming back as negative responses of things that people saw as concerns were the ones that we usually see. And that's not to say that we shouldn't worry about those. That's to say that there were no surprises. So there were a lot of comments about the use of plus portals, about the consistent use of where the assignments get done and things get communicated with teachers. I bundled that into communication. I know there's been a lot of discussion about that. I don't want to downplay the issue, but again, that's something that we expected. There was a lot of concern about facilities. Again, something that we're all familiar with and we're all addressing. And there was some concern about balance and student work-life balance, which again there's a lot of things that we're doing around that. The good news, one of the specific things that we wanted to make sure we included in the survey was understanding of the mission and the core values. So people at least are saying that they understand our mission and they agree with the core values. And that's at least 90% favorable. And by the way, the way Panorama defines favorable, if you remember from our previous discussions, is somewhat restricted to the top two, strongly agree and agree. When people say, neither agree nor disagree, it's not considered favorable, but that doesn't mean that it's 10% unfavorable, right? So this basically says that people agree and understand our mission and core values. On the staff-specific questions, if there's one thing to call out as the room for improvement is decision-making from the administration. There are a couple of comments about whether or not that's transparent or they agree with the procedures. And again, looking at the flip side here, if you only look at the strongly agree answer, which is the top way of saying, yes, if we agree with this, only 17% of the staff strongly agrees there's transparent decision-making in the school. And there was another question about procedures. Are the procedures clear? There was a similar result in that. Again, I'm just reporting the observation, not getting into what it means. Then is the comments. So as you know, we had a couple open comments, and one of them was, what do you believe is the most important thing for the school to do? It's hard to summarize the comments because, of course, they're open text and whatnot. Panorama does the Stack Cloud. If you remember, we did this a while back manually, but Panorama does this for us. There was a lot of talk about mission and core values, as we expected. Excellence is something that gets brought up. You will not be surprised to see a school uniform still showing up there, hopefully not as big as it would have been a long time ago, and policy and things like that. I think general comments from a staff perspective, there was a lot of welcoming of the administration, and remember the timing of this was back in December, right? So morale was an important thing that was mentioned there, and I don't think there was any specific ideas that were mentioned, because that's what we're asking. What are your ideas to address these things? Nothing out of the ordinary kind of came from here. I don't know if, yeah.
So you said December, but then you also said fall. So this is staff. And
It was
when,
actually November.
When did the
It
staff
was
take
November,
it?
yeah.
It was November.
Okay, November, okay.
Right. So December's when we closed, when we got the results.
Okay.
And, yeah,
Thank you.
everything was closed. I don't know if Jill or Liz, if you guys remember any specific comments calling out from the staff.
No, nothing out of the ordinary. Yeah, no.
From a family perspective, same question. Google Classroom was the number one mentioned thing. And again, going back to my comment about no surprises, there was a lot of comments about consistency on how the communication happens. There was a lot of positive comments about administration. There was a lot of comments about infrastructure and facilities. So again, the theme was there that these are the kinds of things that people feel are the most important things for the school. So I don't want to say it's positive or negative that we're still talking about the same things, but it is positive that we are addressing the things that people are concerned about, in my opinion. So we'll continue to have a focus on those things. If we had a big surprise here, it would be an issue because that means we're not focused on the right problems. There was a second comment which I didn't include on the faculty side because there was not enough responses to have Panorama wasn't reporting it this way. But clarification on the things they made. I wish we could just get rid of the word AMSA because, of course, people mention AMSA here, but there were comments about consistency in grading and teachers, and again, you'll see comments about getting the grades and getting the things through cross portals and the communication layer, that it's a recurring theme that families are asking for. So again, this was kind of a broad stroke. I don't know how I'm doing on time, but if we have a couple minutes, we could bring up the actual survey summary that has the percentages behind these. But instead of doing that, I'm just going to ask, does anybody have any questions? Does anybody have seen the survey? Because that's been public out there, or any specific questions of what this might bring up.
So what do we report back to the community after we've analyzed this?
We as the board?
Yeah.
I think this report is what it's publicly available, and it's just basically recorded. There's no deliverable from the board. The survey results themselves are available on the website.
And does anything here change anything that we're doing? So you said there were no surprises, we're continuing to address, so there's, I think when you survey people this often, it's good to think about reporting back to them that we're making these changes as a result of what you told us. And what I'm hearing is, we hear what you told us and we're continuing to work on everything. Is that more or less accurate, or
I think
are there
that,
particular things that?
yeah, there's just a letter actually that Anders has been working on that's going to be going out shortly, that's really giving us a summary of the work that's been done by the Academic Excellence Committee this year. That will be going out to all the families. And the Academic Excellence Group started in September and has been helping us with a lot of these items. As a result, that's where the student survey came from. That's where this change in the school day has come from. All the Diderot Society, all of that has come up through the academic excellence. And I think that some of the things that we've done this year, now remembering this survey was done at the beginning of November, a lot of those items have been addressed. So the letter that Anders has been working on is a summary of all the things that we've been working on all year. And that will go out in the next week or so, right? Yeah.
Is there a sense where we're looking at the data of maybe some priorities or some sort of, I know the word clouds were helpful to me, but like, do you have a sense of like, this is the big issue, or this is where we need to focus?
It's plus portal and
Yeah, I mean,
it's the consistency.
if you could get a tool that combined Google Classroom and plus portals, you would solve 80% probably.
And there's no connection. There's no tool.
Yeah. And I mean, from a parent perspective, I understand that.
Yeah, I mean, I could also, kind of anecdotally, and I don't have the numbers behind this because these were open comments, but I saw another trend that you might see as parent of concern. People commenting on the trends around vaping, for example.
Around what?
Vaping.
Oh,
Vaping happening in school, right? And is that a priority? I think basically how many parents brought it up, it would be up there with facilities and plus portals and whatnot.
And interestingly enough, that was a bigger issue in the fall. than it is in the spring. We've done a lot of education around that, especially in our PE classes. And so hopefully we're going to see a difference in the, if it's brought up in the spring survey.
On that one, was the survey response saying kids were vaping on school or grounds? Or was it just a general concern around vaping?
Probably a little bit of everything. We've tried to do a lot of parent education too on vaping, send out a lot of different materials. And it's a topic that's just buzzing. You have children, it's just a topic that's buzzing around all schools across the country, right? But we've done a lot of work with the students and parent education, and hope that we can address that.
But do we have specific disciplinary action associated with all of that?
Sure, that's a tobacco product here in the schools. It's against the rules in the handbook, and it's handled very swiftly.
So that kind of complicates the reporting thing, because it's like, so reporting out in May on what you said in November, and we've been working on it since December. So like that, I guess this is a Mike Finkel.
That's why I
thing.
started by apologizing.
Yeah.
It's actually the board's fault that we hadn't discussed it at the board, but that doesn't mean the administration hadn't been.
Working.
We've had access to
They know
it.
these results, and they've been taking action since December.
Right, and our plan going forward, which is the
to
first.
bring that, the board report will be closer to the survey window.
And the spring survey just went out.
Right, it actually just closed.
It just closed, so when will we have a report on that?
So, let me test our agreed upon timeline, right? So, if you go down to, we close the survey window, we set 2 weeks approximately for the survey after the survey opens. The draft reports get sent by Panorama 2 weeks later. So actually they're ahead because they closed at, 25th, May 25th, so it only took us 4 days. And we have 4 weeks after the survey closes to redact the comments, because that's one of the things that we decided that was an important step. And then the board meeting following 5 weeks after the survey closes is the one where it should be. And I said 5 weeks just to make sure we included a whole month, because the board meetings are only 1 month after. So if we're saying now, survey closed last week, 5 weeks, so it might not be the next board meeting, or it might be the following one.
Raul, could you bring up, you had the staff survey, could you bring that up and actually bring up
I have them
the
both.
question, if you could just scroll down a little bit to question 3. And I don't know if you have the parent survey too.
I do.
But they're 2 similar numbers there. So question 3, the morale and trust, you see a 85% favorable rating. And if you look at the family one, it's an 89% rating. I think those are really 2 really important numbers. Something that should never be taken for granted. Something that we should cherish and always reflect upon. Because I think those 2 numbers are absolutely
you went by it,
essential to everything that we do. If you don't have the morale and
Stop.
trust.
Sorry, not you.
Yep. So if you can see question number 3, I think that's it's at the staff.
Right, and this is where I say the way Panorama categorizes as favorable could be misleading. There's only 3% of people that think there's not.
Yeah, I just think those are numbers that need to be highlighted, and it's something that should be a light should be shined on those numbers, in the sense that those are numbers that we want, those are numbers that we need to continue to strive for.
And those are numbers that we have not always had.
Right.
Yeah, and even if you look at number 5, Raul, where it talks about, we're talking about communication plus portals, but when we're talking about the communication from between, the school, and this is all the work of Mike Finkel that he's done, you're looking at a 90% favorable. I mean, we were just thrilled, like doing backflips with the result on these surveys. And you're right, there was one section there, 58%, and that's consistency. And we know that's historically an issue. And we work on that every day. But there's some fantastic, outstanding results from both this parent and staff survey that, we've been very, very pleased with.
And I think just to comment on the, the positive and not positive, I think we should kind of stick with the convention that the Panorama has given us, because I think that's the industry standard, is that if it's not agree or strongly agree, it's not positive. Neutral is not positive.
Right.
And so, to dig into the, well, the negatives or so, I don't think we need to qualify. It's like, we go with what's the positive, favorable rating, and not worry about what's neutral versus what's disagree, unless we really need to dig into it.
Right. Well, I agree with that, but also semantics are important with some of the questions. So, not for this survey. The other survey had something, for example, do you feel the board is focusing on the right things? Mm-hmm. I think, I may be wrong, but a big portion of the respondents said neither agree nor disagree. And what they're saying is, we have no idea what the board is focusing on. Right? So that doesn't mean they disagree with what the board is focusing on. That means that they don't know what the board is focusing on, so they can't say one way or another. So that's where I would say it's important to kind of make a distinction. But yeah, some of these are more like net promoter scores where
right. That's the point I was making. Is a net promoter thing, yeah.
So is there a recommendation for next steps from the Fall Pulse survey?
Well, it kind of feels out of time to make any recommendations that I think that have already been addressed. So I would say no, but from the...
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think the important part was to get the calendar in place so that, we don't have this lapse next year.
Right.
Congratulations on doing that. That was great.
And it was discussed with Ellen and
Lynn
as well, so, it wasn't just the board deciding this is when we're going to do things. So.
Excellent. Other questions for Will? Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know how I did in time.
You're ahead.
Good, you're ahead. Yep, well done.
Check.
Liz, education?
So just a quick update, we, at the last Ed Committee meeting, we did finalize additional verbiage for Mr. Vital to use on the website for internships, so we'll be sharing that with him and getting some, input back from him, and then he can finalize what he wants to use. But the one thing is we definitely want the students to be aware of where they can go for the information, and also, what opportunities are out there for internships. Also, I just would like to note, because we did have our first year of student representatives on the education committee, the 3 seniors are leaving us, but I do just want to acknowledge and thank Nathan Lee, Robbie Coakley, and Soleil Kelly, because they were very helpful in getting this this off the ground with having the student reps. And we have Kirthi Balaji and Katie Canestraro, who will be continuing next year. So they were our junior reps, the juniors that represented on the board, the education committee. So they have both agreed to continue for next year. So we're excited about that, and we'll probably be adding 1 or 2 more juniors just to sort of bring them along. Mm-hmm. So we'll hopefully continue this on. That's it for Ed.
Questions for Liz? Thank you, Liz. Chris, annual giving campaign update.
Speaking of timely feedback, I don't have a lot of detail to offer, and that's my fault, but Mark reports that we're at about $30,000 out of a goal of 40, right?
40, preferably 50.
Which is about where we want to be. He's got 2 major, and I don't know if he counts, if your money is in that total list. Jill, rather. So if you haven't made your gift, please do, and I'll get a communication out to everybody reminding you to make your gift. But so far it's been going very well. The committee met on May 6th and heard, great staff reports in terms of the amount of corporate outreach that's going on and the things that's producing. And then at that time, it seems to continue that the annual giving campaign is moving along about how we would have expected and how we would have wanted. So no news then from a few weeks ago, and then now it seems like we're tracking pretty well. We also spent a fair amount of time talking because the development committee is leaving the board next month, and trying to figure out how to prepare for that. and thinking really that it's got to be folded into the whole, we have a generational change in the board occurring. And in terms of a development boot camp or our approach to development, not to mention, how other, the urgency of the need is floating around a little bit as well. So that it really needs to be looked at going into when the new class of trustees arrives. How is development integrated into their onboarding and how everybody understands their roles going forward? And Evan, I wish you a lot of luck.
I'm sorry, I was just going to add in that Bobby Bishop, one of our past students, alumni, teachers now, wrote a lovely letter that will go out very soon. Anders and I working on a video on Monday, but we did a similar thing last year, so that hopefully will help boost things. There's a little concern that the money's coming in a little bit slower. The donations seem to be larger, but the numbers just are a little slower, I think, coming up. And there's a news release that is coming out about the girls who participated with Synovian. And Synovian created the video, and wait till you see it. It is awesome. And that will be coming out, and it's going to be blasted through media, because Synovian has, they're just finishing up the written portion that's going to go along with that press release, but wait till you see it, because it's really cool. The kids are amazing.
Do you know when it's coming out? I was wondering if we could see that maybe the next board meeting.
Well, yes, I'll show it to you. It's about 1 minute and 43 seconds. I was going to show it tonight, honestly, but then I wasn't sure how long things were going to go, and I didn't want to spoil any of the fun from Synovian, because it is their material.
Sure.
So next month.
Great.
Is there any way that in the last few weeks, as you're sort of sending things out to parents, I know sometimes parents are looking for ways to thank end of the year teachers. Maybe there's some way to say, donate to the annual fund and we'll send your favorite teacher, or you want to thank a teacher, we'll send them a note or something. I don't know. I just feel like sometimes parents are giving me coffee mugs and I already have 250 of them.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, make a donation on your behalf.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'll mention
Oh, so it's like buy your mother flowers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. I'll write that down tomorrow.
And I just wanted to add, I think having Maura on the board is going to be great for development. She knows Mark Vidal. She has a lot of connections in the city.
No pressure.
And no, I think she's going to be great. Whatever she can offer is going to be good. So I'm glad you're on the board.
Yeah. So Chris and Eva, first thank you for really stepping up our game in development and really trying to make the next step. I would like to see if it's possible for you to make write up additional recommendations for the development, the future development committee.
Sure.
To see what should
we'll meet. So a note in a bottle.
Yeah. So I'd love, if it fits in my schedule, I'd definitely want to make that development committee meeting myself. So.
Great. And have you heard of this thing called the Board Advisory Council? An opportunity for you to
I've already been signed up.
Yeah, we have.
Getting way too far.
All right. Other questions for Chris? All right. Governance.
Miss Mora. We worked together years ago on a board. And,
the governance,
nice
I think we
together,
covered
however briefly now.
We covered most of governance between elections and the length of school day. Minor upkeep piece. Jess, you get an interest in joining the governance committee?
I would love to serve on the governance committee.
You are therefore appointed to join the governance committee.
Well, thank you.
So we got that. We also need to schedule board meetings. Well, I'll do this offline, but we need to schedule a board meeting for July timeframe to approve the. So Sarah, you want to describe what we need for
the annual report?
For the annual report.
And the charter renewal application.
And so in a July meeting date TBD. We will be approving those documents that Sarah and the administration is working on.
Right. My intention is to have that ready for you before that meeting so that you'll be able to review sometime.
Right. So I will be sending out an email with candidate dates to see. I know the quorum could be a challenge. We will need to schedule a July meeting for this purpose. And, well, I'll go ahead and do this now. So, Evan, Chris, you have indicated interest in joining the Board Advisory Council?
Yes, I think we got signed up for students. I didn't realize I had, but I was told I had, so.
I volunteer.
Yes.
Okay.
I heard him say anybody who doesn't want to join, speak up now.
Yeah, so,
Too late.
so for the Board Advisory Council, it actually does require a vote of the board. I would like to nominate, as chair, I'd like to nominate Chris O'Keefe to join the Board Advisory Council.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
So it was Roger and Kristen.
Roger, Kristen. I'd like to nominate Ev Reynolds to the Board Advisory Council, effective July 1st.
Second.
Chris seconds. All in favor?
Can I vote?
Yes.
Both are approved. Welcome to the Board Advisory Council.
Thank you.
Roger, I just wanted to note, it's already on the calendar, a tentative July 25th board meeting.
Right. Now, I don't think, is that on the, I don't know if we have.
Whatever's on the website gets downloaded to my phone,
Okay.
so.
There's a date.
Okay, I didn't know whether we had extended, I don't know if we had extended our calendar, whether our official calendar had gone beyond June 1st, but gone beyond the June meeting, so. But I think July 25th will definitely be what, the primary candidate. Does that work for your schedule, Sarah?
Yes,
Great.
because I could, I have till August 1
Okay.
to put it in, but I'll probably put it in the day after that.
Yes, okay. And I do want to confirm that we will have a quorum of the board available so that we can get our approval. I mean, summer vacation schedule could be a challenge. So that's it for governance, unless someone has questions for me. Vision Task Force, I'd like to get a quick update from the members of the Vision Task Force to see where we are at there.
Sure. Well, we have a draft and a couple of comments. Well, it was a small task force. Thank you, Jessica and Sarah. I think the next thing would be to send out the draft and the comments to the rest of the board to get further comments, and I'll assemble those, and then we'll go from there.
Has the task force reached a common ground or a consensus?
No,
or
I'm just I will act to take comments and comment on them, and then hand them out until we get more comments, and then we'll decide what the procedure should be to try to integrate it.
Okay. Yeah.
So after this meeting, I'll send out a draft with existing comments. And if everyone could take a look at it, and before next board meeting get back, I'll assemble those comments.
Well, I think you may have a challenge, or we should probably talk regarding open meeting law. Because
no, this next step would have to be via open meeting.
Well, I'm suggesting that a subgroup via an open meeting get together and distill the comments rather than trying to leverage the whole board in the June board meeting to try to do the same, because we've spent a whole offsite with the board.
So let me ask maybe a dumb question. Has the task force met?
No.
Okay.
I'm just assembling comments.
Okay.
Of a small group so that it's within the open meeting law purview, so that, but the next step I thought would have to go through open meeting, because it would be greater than a quorum of the board. Is that not correct?
Right. Well, even less than a quorum, because we are working on advising and creating. We're not just distilling. Where you're creating content. You're creating a recommendation to the board that process would be governed under open meeting law.
Right.
So you would need to, even the task force would need to meet under open meeting law to work toward that.
Sure.
So we can't send out an email to the full board because that would be a violation of
Well,
open meeting law?
you can,
For information purposes, you can, but you can't solicit
We can't comment, okay.
comments.
right, you can't solicit, Anders, I got you next. You can't solicit, you can broadcast information, but you can't be stating your opinion about, I feel that we should do X, Y, Z in this case. So it gets in.
Right.
But we can definitely communicate out that the next 12 board meeting dates are X, Y, Z, Q, or do
So,
administrative stuff.
Are you recommending that we actually, because we didn't really settle on a process, right? You step forward, say, let's have a task force, and then there've been emails going back and forth trying to iron out what to do next and get the right documents and all that. So is the task of the task force to come up with a recommendation for the board to consider, or is it just to gather a whole bunch of input? So the one thing that I kind of heard you talking about, Gene, is that we had a draft, and then we had this set of comments and that set of comments, which the whole board could look at.
Yes.
Or the group could struggle with trying to assimilate those.
And since there were
and
no
come up with a
decisions,
draft.
I assume that was with a small group under open meeting law. But if we expand it, then everyone would have to get all the data.
Right.
Well, the three of us could, go.
Yes, Anders.
Just a quick question, and perhaps this is the board you're going to consider, but in terms of the process, when we came up with a value statement or a core value statement is really, really, really important document that I would rank along with our mission statement and with our core values. When the board and the school did the core values, I thought the process was marvelous. It was open, it was very transparent. Feedback was gathered from teachers, feedback was gathered from administrators, feedback was gathered from students, from parents, from the board, from everybody. It was a very open, very democratic, transparent process. That's tough, it's difficult, it requires compromise and negotiation, and it requires time. Certainly my recommendation would be that in creating a statement that is so important and that goes to the core of what we wish to be, that a very thoughtful process is put together that asks teachers for their input, that asks administrators for their input, parents, students, the entire community, so that consensus is built around what our values are, right? Because if you create a document that says these are our values, and it's 3 or 4 people, however well-meaning and however thoughtful they are, if you don't have that input and you don't have that buy-in from a larger community, it's an empty document.
Some suggestion, and that would be that the task force come back with a recommended process. And now I think what's happening is we're kind of practicing dealing with it. Right, so Gene drafted some stuff, and looking at the thing I drafted a couple of years ago, and I think that's good for the task force to be unofficially trying to, start wrestling with the stuff so that they can in turn come back and say, here's the process for finalizing this vision statement we recommend to the board that, how does it, where does it sit with the values and the mission? And then, here's how we plan to do it, and then let the board approve that process.
So,
a suggestion I'd make.
A key thing is, I think this should be a board vision. Now, the community can comment on the board vision, but it's the role of the board to provide the vision to the administration and the community. I think they can comment on it, but I think it has to be our vision.
Yeah, so.
Haven't we already done this? Isn't what the retreat was? I'm so confused.
Right, well, so here's a statement from the page 4
No, the retreat
of
did not complete the job.
We didn't, so.
But that's where we got the community feedback, so.
Right, we got some. So, stepping back, on page 4 of 6 of the minutes from last meeting, the task force is to create a vision statement. The board agreed that writing a vision statement will require collaboration, cannot be written by one, And so the task force was assigned to the task force of Pauline, Jean, Jess, Chris O'Keefe, and Sarah was to take what we described as the 80% vision and come up with a vision statement from that.
Is it our job,
All right, so then it
Roger?
is our job to agree to a draft.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember that working into that document was the 80% vision that we worked on with Nan Dill.
Right, that's what I was
Yes.
going to say. It's our job of the task force to incorporate all the work that we did on that,
Yes.
right? It is.
Yes.
So I mean, I
Yeah.
think starting off with a draft on email, maybe we need to meet in person. That's kind of where I'm leading to.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I don't know where other, I mean, I'm not like volunteering for extra meetings, but I think that's probably where we need to be.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll volunteer to coordinate that. I'll send out an email that says, let's meet. here in a
Right,
couple
and-
That'd be
days.
great, Gina.
And I believe that meeting should be under open meeting law,
So it has to be posted.
so it have to be posted.
Oh, that should be under open meeting.
Because you're formulating policy, you're doing more than just distilling numbers.
Okay.
Or just, you're not like.
But not because of quorum.
Not because of quorum, but because you're creating, you're providing guidance to the board rather than just collecting facts or alphabetizing a list or.
But I thought task force
Yeah,
could
you
meet.
should be
Yeah.
calling
Yeah.
them a committee then.
Yeah.
A vision committee,
Well-
then it has to be.
Is it a
No,
committee or a task force?
It is a task force because it is created and and disbanded. It's not, a committee is something that's listed in the bylaws. Task forces can either, in some cases, can be not governed under open meeting law, where they're just distilling data and reporting back to the board what the data is, but where you are creating a recommendation to the board,
How is that different though from a
Facilities task.
evaluation task force or a survey task force? I'm confused.
That wouldn't be
Um,
open meeting.
I can send out the guidance we've received. I've asked this question in the past. There was a good document that was provided by our legal counsel trying to cover this gray zone. So,
And I don't really know what the recommendation is, but just speaking for the survey task force, as you saw, I provided observations on the data. We didn't recommend any course of action to, and we actually kind of said that the action was already taken, right? So, I mean, I don't want to say that we've never done that I don't think that the purpose of the task force was related to creating policy, but you could argue that if you're distilling something that was already creating, I don't know, it's a gray line as to whether or not this is.
right, I will send the guidance out. It's the only challenge with the open meeting law for a task force is just to announce it 48 hours in advance and to meet in person.
And when we do meet, it would be helpful if we could have Nan's notes or the big piece of paper or whatever. Right, Sarah, you must have all, maybe you
Yeah,
can.
we've got,
Yeah.
Got it.
Sarah has all the access to all the documents and share them.
Awesome.
All right.
I can't have a meeting without giant easel paper. I mean, it's just, that's how I'm wired.
I don't have
You need
those,
some
but I can blow
Sharpies.
them up with you.
This can't do without it.
That's how the game gets played.
That's right. These are done for you.
All right. And so I'll take the action item to task force, OML. ED evaluation task force, Liz, do you have an update?
I do. So the process and timeline for 2019. So we're obviously got two different evaluations to do. So for Dr. Lewis, the evaluation will focus on the goals achieved for 2019-2020 school year. We'll ask Anders for his self-evaluation prior to the June governance meeting. And then at the governance meeting, they'll discuss the self-evaluation and the evaluation. And then for the June board meeting, we'll vote on the recommendation from the governance committee. For Ellen, the evaluation will only focus on March 1st, 2019 through the end of the school year, so the period of time that was her interim role. And we're going to use the Board on Track system, which is very structured and must occur serially. So I just confirmed with her that she will complete her self-evaluation by tomorrow.
11:59.
And then direct reports and academic department chairs will complete their evaluations by Friday, June 14th. And then the Board of Trustees will complete theirs by the end of June. So the evaluation will be discussed at the July governance meeting and then at the July board meeting. And the goals for the 2019-2020 school year will be established in the July-August timeframe. So we have some time to do that. And that's it.
Just one comment on that, that my evaluation would only be based on work that I've done since March 1st. I found that it's very difficult to tease that out, right? Because a lot of the foundational work from this year, Anders and I have been doing all year long. So I am finding that I am referencing things that we've been working on all year long that I certainly have been a part of. So just as you read those comments, it's not just from March 1st, honestly.
I'm lucky if I remember March 1st, to be honest. I don't know how you would tease that out, yeah.
All right. Is there anything do you have any blocking issues or anything? It sounds like everything's on track.
Yeah, no, I don't, I don't see any issues right now.
Great.
We'll find out at the June governance meeting.
All right. Thank you. So agenda items for the June meeting. Besides, we just had the ED evaluation. What other agenda items? Raul, do you think you'll have?
It'll just be Anders.
For Anders?
Yes.
Raul, do you think you'll have
Survey.
survey?
So we said 5 weeks.
So I think the options there would be either June or July. So which?
So once, can I have the date, because I think
June 20th.
20th? That should be fine. What do you guys think? Go
It'd
for
be
it?
good if you have it.
All right, yes. Survey
Okay.
result review.
Okay, we can.
Do it.
There's only 900
It will
comments
be
on that
blind
one.
this time.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Off the record.
Yeah.
One thing to consider in June or July timeframe, the student handbook recommendations will be coming in. Brianna Murphy, Dan Amaral have been working on that. We'll finalize those recommendations. We have a large committee this year, so they're reviewing the document, sorting it out. We'll make it nice, simple cheat sheet for everybody. And that will be June or July.
So that would roll up through governance. So
Yeah, it would start the governance.
So it's start in governance, and then we'll.
Yeah.
So it'll be, from a board meeting perspective, it'll be a June or July approval.
Yep.
Will you have governance in July?
We will probably, yes, we plan to have governance in July because it's part of your ED evaluation. Sarah?
When do you usually do your next year's schedule for board meetings?
I expect that we would do that approve that in June. So we probably would discuss that in the June governance. So June governance, board meeting schedule, and then June, we would just announce, I think we would just announce that once governance approves. I don't think we need a board, it would just be an informed to the board when governance is ready. So June governance for the board schedule. Other items for the June or July meeting.
Just the annual report.
So July
Charter.
annual report.
Whatever is listed on our board calendar.
Yeah, the goal of this is the non-standard items. beyond the standard calendar. All right. So I have my, we need, well, that's on the calendar, but we'll be doing committee appointments either in June or July. Meeting retrospective, so.
We're 30 minutes ahead of time.
Yeah, we're on fire. I'm telling you, you put me on this board, things run like clockwork.
All right. We had a very full agenda, so appreciate everybody for going through that.
And that's with the length of public comment, so good job.
Yes.
What about time of day?
Coincidence that both of those students are in my AP macroeconomics?
Other.
Well, I just think this was the first time we did the votes in the upfront, right?
Yes.
I think that worked out well, didn't it?
So straw poll from the board to do the votes up front?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that too.
Yes. Okay, we will continue that policy. We'll continue to do that. I think that's very effective. Other feedback? One minor thing I'd think about it is that, because I participate in both the governance side of I know adjusting school day is a huge decision, so I think it is important to have spent time on that, but since I saw both the governance and the board presentation, I thought we spent a little bit too much time restating the same thing. We might have been able to compress that, but at the other hand, for board members who were seeing this for the first time, I guess I'll ask that to those board members. Did you feel you had enough information? Did you feel you had too much? Could we have been more efficient?
Well, it wasn't that efficient, but it was very effective. So it could have been true, because I'm listening to the length of the presentations and the number of them, thinking, okay, like when are we going to hear the other side? How come we're hearing all this? I get it. This is a no-brainer, it seems like. So that, on the one hand, wasn't very efficient. On the other hand, it was great to hear from people. And it was also, and I was just noticing, so I noticed us applauding to, after each speech, which 3 years ago, during public comment, we sat like this. And we endured it, and it ended, and we sat like this. And so that's just another sign of how far we've come.
I think, Chris, to your point, that there was sort of some of the other side in the negative, and the people who were opposed to it, that came out on the AMSA Facebook page or the chat page. So I think we didn't really sort of know what to anticipate from that. So I think,
There could have been 50 parents here, we didn't know.
So you came loaded for bear.
Sure, and, we tried to address each email, as Jill said.
you answered the emails
Very, Mike got a few, and but it was not, and we had, family forum and community meeting. We really didn't know what to expect, but there was a lot of passion in the community for it. Felt that it was the right thing to do.
So all I can say, speaking to the efficiency of the process, you did a good job of convincing me that the opposing view was heard and addressed, and the concerns were addressed.
Thank you.
That's all we need to know as a board, because, and I hate to say it this way, but if there was anybody on the other side that felt strongly about it, they would have been up there as well, right? So the number saying that those people are only 28% or whatever the number was, and that their concerns were this, and this, which that was going to be my question before I could ask the question. You had it up there on the screen, right? So those were their concerns, and this is how we're addressing them. I think that's what we want to hear as part of this process.
I would say one comment regarding this, and maybe any other thing that we vote on, is if there's a document that we can have for pre-read ahead of time, then we can be prepared in advance and then be prepared with questions. I would suggest that maybe anything that needs to be voted should be presented earlier. I don't know when
This was
the budget
presented
came
last
up, but
meeting. Yeah, last meeting we talked about it.
we
It was
talked about it,
previewed.
but it was previewed, right? But there were no facts really, I think, discussed.
Oh, no, there was
The way-
charts, and
Was the chart?
I actually gave you more
Can
detailed
we get,
information
but
last
maybe
time.
getting that as a handout in addition, not just in the meeting, because then it's on the screen, we have nothing to go back and look at, and then it's.
Actually, to your point, Christine, is that I think one of the things we talked about in meeting efficiency was to be get much crisper about what the homework is. And I think we haven't been, that's something that we could go back and look at is, for this discussion, please read the following 10 pages.
Yeah, that's good.
And be prepared with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we intended to do that, and it's just like, let's do it.
That's a good point.
That's a really good point, Chris.
I think for the governance committee, we had Brian there, we had a half a dozen other teachers showed up as a public meeting, and Brian went through so many detail. And I could have easily sent his slides out to you, but I don't know if you would have needed someone, I think, to walk you through it to know exactly what he had done, because it's pretty detailed and technical. But we can certainly, in other areas, that's an easy enough thing to do.
I don't know if we publicly thank Brian for all the work he did on that. It was an incredible labor there to put a lot of
AMSA graduate.
AMSA alum in the house.
Proud of our alum.
Yeah, but I do think, I'm seconding Chris's piece that, if we had a summary sheet that was, okay, board, we're going to make a vote on this subject. Please come prepared and read these documents before the meeting.
Isn't that what the agenda is?
Well, but the agenda just says what we're going to discuss. It just says we're going to adjust the length of the school day, but it doesn't say, Raul, in order to prepare for this discussion, you need to have read.
Isn't that the board packet?
Well, but
I guess those things were not in the board packet. I guess that's the bottom line.
There wasn't a board packet.
Right.
We could have referenced and said, please go back and look at Ellen's April
Right.
report.
Right.
We need that thing like that that the Secretary of the Commonwealth sends out when there's a ballot question.
Yes.
Yes on one, no on one.
Who's going to write that, Justin? Are you volunteering? Yeah, I know.
So.
We've been at camp for too many years. Yeah.
Right. Other feedback on the meeting?
No, just comments since we've been capturing open action items. I think we covered all from last board meeting. From this board meeting, I captured 2. Roger, you said you'll send the OML guidelines about the task force discussion, and Jean will coordinate the vision task force. Oh, Roger said he's going to send the guidelines from open meeting law about task force meeting. Don't worry, Sarah, I'll send them to you, the email.
Yeah, so, we should, do we have other thinking of that, do we have other open action items that were from the carried over from the previous meeting?
I can read them to you.
I have one. I'm supposed to draft a letter to the parents, a development sort of theme.
Yeah.
It's on my list.
Okay. So I think we should.
Maybe more.
Yeah, I think maybe at the end of the meeting, we should at the beginning or end of the meeting, we should review the open action items to make sure that they still make sense.
I mean, I think we covered them all if you trust me on that, but I can read them from last. The first one was to change the date, which we did. We were meeting.
Okay, so we're good?
No, we're good, we're good.
Okay. And we have 2 open action items from this. We have Jill's carryover plus 2 open action items from this meeting. All right, at this point, we're ready to, unless there is any other business, like to I'm making a motion to go into executive session to discuss the purchase or lease of real property and litigation strategy, because discussion in open session would be detrimental to our position. And
so moved.
Second.
And I will be inviting Ellen Anders, if he wishes to attend, Lisa, Liana.
Who else?
Ellen Anders, Lisa, Liana, and our new Maura. Do
you want
Maura to attend the. I'll extend the invite to her. It's up to her whether she wishes to attend. And I need a roll call vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes. 5-minute adjourn, we'll start in 5 minutes.